Hello and welcome to the second Classic Dungeon Speed Competition, Adventure 2, Let's Get Classy. My name is Duranosaur, of course, and today I am co-hosting this event, and I'm lucky to be co-hosting this event with my good friend Shrek. Shrek, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing today, Tyrannosaur?
I am good. I'm excited to watch some fast dungeons get run.
I'm so excited to see people do things fast.
Yes. Doing things fast is always a lot more fun than not doing them fast. So that's what we're going to try to have happen today. So before we get started, our first run is going to be taking place here in about 25 minutes. Until then, Shrek and I are going to be talking a little bit about this community, what we're doing here. We're also going to be talking about the teams, the competition itself, the prize pool, and just doing our best to keep you guys just excited enough to stick around for the whole thing. So with that, I'll kind of jump into this. As we're going throughout the day today, if you guys are interested in what I'm doing here, this is Classic Dungeon Speed. So I'm trying to build this community, trying to get people who play Classic WoW to go back into dungeons. I know a lot of us have gotten to the point where we've got these geared and decked out characters, and we aren't necessarily using them to their full potential, I think. We're using them to raid, but other than that, it feels like we're not really doing much with them. I think a lot of people are raid logging, or they're playing alts, or they're doing other things. And one of my favorite things in Classic has always been running dungeons, and I think that our characters are being wasted right now. And I think that if more people went out and ran dungeons, especially with groups of 4 other geared individuals, they would understand and grow to love them as much as I do. So a lot of what this community is about doing that. And with that, we have this competitive aspect to it. So we're trying to get speed runs going of these dungeons. So at any point during the stream, if you guys do !Discord in the chat, you'll see that first one listed is the Classic Dungeon Speed Discord. So that's where everything related to Classic Dungeon speedrunning is being held right now. There's 2 big things that we're doing with the community. So the events like today is one of them. We're trying to get people excited about running dungeons. We're trying to once a month come up with these unique competitions that have rules that are going to get people running dungeons with like different compositions than they might otherwise. Thinking about different routes within the dungeons. There might be restrictions down the road on more for class composition, for world buffs, for consumables, for all kinds of stuff. So the competitions are really about getting people excited about the dungeon runs and thinking outside of the box. But if you go to the Discord and you check it out, we actually have leaderboards set up. And on those leaderboards, we have every single level 60 dungeon. And anyone at any time can come into the Discord and they can submit a run for one of those dungeons. And we have outlined rules for for what you have to do in each of those dungeons, but the rules are very, very basic, right? So it's mostly what you need to do to start the run, and then what you need to do to finish the run. There's as little restrictions as we can have, and it's very much so to get people just running dungeons again and running them as fast as possible. So no restrictions means go out, do whatever you can, record the run, submit the run, and try to get one of those top leaderboard spots. So that's what the leaderboard's about. And yeah, these competitions are more for fun. But as you can see, today we have a $150 prize pool. So even with the fun, there is a little bit added incentive for people to come and participate.
I definitely would like to add though with the Discord, I've had a few people approach me and say, "Hey, I'm really interested in running some dungeons and trying to get some times on the leaderboard, but I haven't quite found a team yet, and I'm not sure people are interested." I encourage everyone to go post on the general chat, see if there's people on your server. It's a growing community, so there's a lot of people that you may not even realize come out the woodwork who are interested in some of the same things as you are. So definitely get in there, start interacting with some people. So if you don't have a team now, you could find your future team.
Exactly. Yeah, this is still a growing community. I know the Discord is still relatively small, especially when we're talking about having this be something across all of Classic WoW. So we're trying to get more people involved, but a lot of that's going to happen with you guys coming and watching these competitions, talking about them, and then getting your guildies and your server more excited about doing these speed runs. And one of the things that I'm excited about as we move into phase 6 of Classic WoW is that there's going to be less and less for people to do in game as we kind of transition, hopefully, to TBC. But during that time of people having knacks cleared and on farm, that's going to give us lots of opportunity to continue to push this community and hopefully have it set and ready so that come TBC, we can transition into doing these same leaderboards and competitions with TBC dungeons, specifically heroics. So we have the long term, long distance in mind, but we're also still trying to do stuff every day to make this to have this continue to grow and develop and to hopefully entertain you guys along the way. So that's what this community is about. That's what we're trying to do. And with that, we can kind of move into what we've got going with our competition specifically today. So today we are hosting a competition. If I can get the slide to work. The rules for the competition today, it's a 5-player dungeon team. You cannot bring more than one of each class. So that's the big rule for today's competition is you cannot class stack at all. All buffs are allowed. That means all party buffs, all world buffs, they are allowed. The only restrictions are there's no Invis pots, no Invis trinkets, and no flask of petrification. Now, the dungeon that we are running today is Dire Maul West. The teams must enter through the south entrance, and just so that we ensure that every team starts in that nook and has the same method of starting their clock, starting their timer, they're going to pull and kill the 3 treants that are just on the left when you come in that south entrance. So that's just to get every team on the same page at the start of the run. And then for bosses, you must kill Immol'thar and you must kill Prince Tortheldrin is his name. So your time stops when both of those bosses have been killed. So most likely when Prince has been killed. So that is our dungeon for today. Anyone that's been following on the Discord has seen that there have already been some pretty competitive times put up for Dire Maul West. It's one of those dungeons that has built-in mechanics as far as like how you can get to and kill the final boss. It's not so easy as just running in and dodging everything just to like beeline it for the final boss. You do have to go through the dungeon and clear all 5, I believe, of the pylons in order to bring down the shield to kill Immol'thar, and at that point you were able to then go and engage Prince Tortheldrin. So it does kind of require teams to actually run the full dungeon, which I think makes it a lot more exciting. But even with that said, we've already seen from the leaderboard that teams are able to do this in under 8 minutes. So it's going to really come down to which team has practiced and which team is avoiding having to fight the most mobs, skipping, where appropriate, and just moving very quickly, very efficiently.
I think one of the things that's really interesting too about Dire Maul West is it's a very vertical dungeon as well, similar to what you see in kind of UBRS and whatnot, which allows for some interesting skips, people able to make some jumps otherwise, but there's also a lot of moving paths, particularly once you get towards Immol'thar. So we'll see. I think there's a couple tricky points where teams could get caught up and just get some unfortunate padding and have to wait a second, or they may just get really aggressive and just decide it's quicker to not wait for the pat and just blast through. But either way, I'm really interested to see how the teams will kind of roll with the punches as we go through, especially if they've been in the instance for a little while beforehand. They won't get that default patrol route. So if they're sitting there waiting for the show to start, they may find that the mobs are in a little bit different location than what they've done in some of their test runs before.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Things move around once you get into the dungeon, as I think most of us know, and that can, if you've been practicing these, it can definitely mess with you if you've sat in there for a while. The other big thing that I think is going to play a part is group composition as we go. Like I said, you cannot have more than one of each class, so that leads to a lot of different compositions. So we're actually going to move into the teams. So here
And
we have the first teams. I'm going to let Shrek kind of introduce these teams, and then we'll talk about the compositions as we go.
absolutely. So we've got a great variety of team compositions today. Team one, Buzzbin and the Thunderberries. A fantastic name. We've got a lot of great names today, and we'll be doing a poll later to decide which one you guys think is the best. But from Buzzbin and the Thunderberries, we got Def Camp, who's a priest, Isle's a warrior, Buzzbin, who's a hunter, Slumber Party, a rogue, and then Melderon, who's a shaman. So we got a nice. We're rocking. I'm not sure if Def Camp is a shadow priest or not, but we'll be rocking potentially a two healer party on this one. So it could be interesting.
Yeah.
Hunter allows for some really interesting pulls and some flexibility to potentially skip some packs that you may not have otherwise. Then for
Yeah.
team two,
Oh, I was just gonna say, sorry for team one.
oh,
I'm pretty sure Melderon is elemental.
okay,
So he's gonna be blasting mobs down with some lightning bolts. So that I think is gonna be one of the more exciting things to see is just how well an elemental shaman keeps up with mana and how much like DPS they're actually able to get out.
people underestimate those Ellie shamans, but they can pump. They're
Yes.
absolute pumpers. So, especially in the beginning, to Durant's point about if he can manage his mana well, depending on what consumes he's bringing, he's going to be, a 10-second hero for every single one of those pulls at a minimum. Cool. Well, for Team 2, Team Salty, we got Denny as a rogue, Quavo the warrior, Looney Tune a priest, Ganondorf the warlock, and D's Nutters a mage. So working in a little bit more of a caster-heavy rotation for this team, but the mage allows for some polymorphs, a lot more AoE, and then the warlock offers a lot of versatility and also potentially some pretty big burst damage too, depending on what spec they're kind of rolling in there. I'm assuming there'll be a DS rune, but we'll see. So be interesting. And I'm curious to see what all the warriors are going into. If we're going to go for more of a single target damage and go more fury spec, or if we're going to be going for those sweeping strikes. Could be curious to see how each group is handling their warrior situation for this. But
Yeah. Yeah. So we actually aren't quite sure the faction of each group, but my guess would be Salty is probably Alliance just by the fact that they don't have a shaman. I could be wrong. It could be a horde group that elected to go priest instead of shaman, but that's something that we're all going to get to see once we jump into their run.
definitely. Another thing to note too is that they could not get any paladin buffs if they were alliance unless they had a paladin in their team too. So it's not like they're going to be sneaking in any extra buffs just because they're alliance or just because they're running with a different comp or something to that effect.
Yeah.
But for team three, you got the smooth brain gang. Ooh. Talder, who's a shaman, and then I'm gonna assume that's how it's pronounced. The mage, Varkas, who's a warrior, Cable, a warlock, and we got another priest, so Slurp.
Yeah, another shaman and priest group. This is an interesting trend that teams are going with.
This is a very mana dependent team, so it'll be interesting to see how heavily they're popping their mana potions, or if they're going really hard on MP5 gear potentially too, just to ensure that they can stay on the move. Of course, with the priest, I'm not sure which one of these will be the healer for the group. I'm assuming it's going to be the priest, but the priests, of course, have significantly better mana conservation than any of the shamans do. So we'll see how they kind of manage that. We'll see how hard this warlock's about to life tap and really just drain the soul of the healers.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, someone in chat's actually bringing up an important point that I failed to mention when going over the rules. Each team had to submit their composition and register for the tournament before knowing what the dungeon was. So they did have 1 week to practice knowing what the dungeon was, but they had to register and submit their team comp before they knew it was Dire Maul West. So that probably affected their group comp just a little bit. I think that maybe if they knew that it was Dire Maul West, that they would have adjusted things a little bit. But I did kind of want to keep teams in the dark just enough to keep it interesting.
Definitely got to keep those people on their toes, as you know from the last competition. The people didn't know Skolomanson with the Royals until not even 24 hours in advance. So you've had a little bit more time to prep, and I think we'll see some really interesting runs and hopefully some really interesting strategies. I'm excited to see how many noggin foggers get popped by certain teams or kicking in those goblin rocket boots to get in that edge out that last couple seconds.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited.
For Team 4, we got the Better Rewind with Kektus, Pukin, Kelds, Kiori, and Quatar. So that's a priest, warrior, hunter, mage, and rogue. Kind of similar to what we saw with the Team 1, minus the shaman, of course.
Yeah, going mage instead of elemental shaman.
Mm-hmm. So still looking for some of that burst AoE damage on there, but it'll be interesting to see how those. I think Team 4 and Team 1 will be a very interesting comparison because they're a very similar kind of comp and just kind of subbing for what kind of caster they're using within that group, which allows a little bit, not quite as much burst damage as what you're going to get from the Elemental Shaman, but it's going to allow a lot more AoE and a bit better of a mana conservation from that group.
Yeah, they look good.
Then we got Team 5 is Empire. We got our first Paladin making their foray into the event.
Oh,
with,
the only Paladin.
The only Paladin, I should say. Yeah, so these groups are going to get those sweet coveted Pally buffs that nobody else will get. So we got Denton the Paladin, Black Ghost the Warrior, Athasbach, and I know you're in the chat, so I apologize. I probably just butchered your name. Pole the Mage, and Convive the Rogue. So this will be an interesting comp. I can confirm. I can't confirm the other ones, but I can confirm this will be an alliance team. So
Yes.
that's the breaking news for them.
And the only inside scoop I have on this group from Atha is that they plan on trying some interesting stuff. They plan on doing what they can to gain an edge, knowing that their group comp might not be the best one. But they're going to be an exciting one to watch. That I have heard, and I am personally stoked to see.
Absolutely, and I think when it comes to these kinds of events, it's not the comp or raw damage that's going to get you. It's how crafty you can be. It really is going to come down to what kind of wild tactics you can do to skip a couple more packs, because that's what's going to buy you the time and potentially be the difference maker for these ones. But for Team 6, we got Daddy's Boys with their Rogue Turch, Blixter, the Warrior, Poor Priest, totally about to ruin this name, Chatvolke, the Warlock, and Cuppies, the Mage.
I think you did a good job there. That was solid.
Thank you. And if they're listening right now, and I totally annihilated it, I am so sorry. But send me a message, and I'll write an apology letter. But anyway, we've got a lot of Warlocks in the competition today, which is something I wasn't really expecting to see, to be honest with you. They're not one of the more traditional speed running classes that we've kind of seen, and I think that opens up some really interesting opportunities, as well as mechanics that they could potentially try to play around with. Or I'm curious to see how much they'll just try to maybe even dot some stuff and just run with it. I really don't know, but I think that opens up another interesting opportunity that I wasn't really expecting to see in this competition.
Yeah, and I think it's we're going to get to the last page here, but there were some compositions that had druids in them, and I think that a druid healer and a warlock DPS do pair a little bit better, just because of the hots, being able to apply those and then let the warlock life tap. It's interesting to see all these warlocks with like either a priest or a shaman healer, because I feel like that it's a little bit more mana intensive for that healer, and it almost requires them to stop to be able to heal that warlock if it continues to life tap. So yeah, I'm interested to see how well warlocks perform here.
Definitely, and I think from a lot of the rogues and the warriors, you're not going to see a lot of changing in gear setups, but depending on what the healers and the priests are kind of going for, you could see a great variability in what type of, either they're going to go more MP5 plus healing, or they may even, for a priest, rock that 8 out of 8 transcendence so they can get that free renew running on them. So I think there's going to be of the classes, the healers are going to have the most kind of improvisation with their actual gear setups compared to some of the other classes that we'll see today.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's hard to jump into the idea of what different gear is going to allow these players, because for all we know, most of these players have been clearing raids since day one, so they might have just a ton of versatility in their gear options. And I think that we might see different things like that come into play depending on, because there's so many special items out there, even just knowing engineering items and different like trinkets and everything that can gain you just a little bit of an edge that comes from what gear you're wearing. Like that's stuff that we're gonna have to look out for during the runs.
Definitely. I'm excited to see if there's any wacky trinkets we get, if we get some scarab brooches pop in or something to that effect. I don't know.
Probably
But
lots of diamond flask sets, I'm guessing.
oh, I'm willing to bet we'll see plenty of those. But do you what is the from our leaderboard? I'm pulling it up right now just to kind of give a rough idea of what we've got for top times right now.
Yeah, so if you go to the Classic Dungeon Speed Discord and you look at the leaderboard for Dire Maul West, you'll actually see there's 2 official times that are posted right now. The fastest time is a heavy melee comp group, and they did it in 7 minutes and 58 seconds.
Yeah, and that was with 3 warriors, a rogue, and 1 priest. So
Yeah, yep.
you're not going to be seeing anything like that. But that kind of gives you a rough bar of what to see. So with the diamond flask, the reason I brought that up is it's a 6-minute cooldown. So you're going to have to really pick and choose your moment because you're likely only going to get 1 moment to actually use that diamond flask set. So if you tuned in for the last run, Immol'thar, the team that actually won it, utilized that diamond flask set to clear an entire room out of Skolomance. And it really got them into a very advantageous position timing wise and freed up their members to clear other rooms. So it'll be interesting to see when they choose that mechanic, if they decide to have someone break off, clear an area by themselves, maybe a pylon or something like that. But timing of those trinkets will be as important as the trinkets themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just such a broken set. So it'll be interesting to see and kind of watch for them to be used.
But going back to the teams, we got our last 3 teams for the day. So Team 7, we got the Green Parse Dungeon Come. Ribbajack is the priest, with Beat Up the warrior, Zidane the hunter, PJ Frostfire the mage, and Austin the warlock. So again, all 3 of these last teams all have a warlock in them. Very heavy. There may be as many warlocks as there are warriors almost in this competition, which is surprising.
Yeah, it is. I do want to we might have to cruise through these last couple teams, or we can continue talking about them after, because I know our first team is starting here in like 2 minutes, and they're getting about ready to go. So
we'll just do a quick intro on these names.
Yeah.
So got Handjob Dictionary with Boogle the rogue, Coinstar the warrior, Killer Gen druid, Black Magic the warlock, Raging Beef the shaman, and finally, last but not least, Team Nice with Minicoop the rogue, Keldarva, oh my god, the mage, Trot the warrior, Lichbane the warlock, and Tranquil Cow the druid.
Yes.
So
perfect. Sorry. Well, I mean, we'll have more time to talk about these teams, especially like before each of their runs. We'll be able to talk through their comps and stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get this first team set up, get their stream up and running, just so that we can be prepped and ready for them.
So just a reminder, guys, this is going to be Buzzbin and the Sunderberries. So that was our first team with Def Camp the Priest, Isle Warrior, Buzzbin the Hunter, Slumber Party the Rogue, and Meldron the Shaman. So we got the Ellie Shaman coming in. So we'll see how hard they're going to pump tonight. Really excited.
So I'm not sure if the stream is up and running still. Ah, there it is. I'll get some audio up and running here. Hopefully their stream's good. Hopefully that's not just on my end.
So the first thing I'm noticing is they're rocking a dual wield setup. So I'm assuming, I mean, they may change it up and may have a 2-hander as we get into the game, but it looks like Isle the Warrior may be rolling in as a Fury for this one. But we'll see once we get in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just hoping that they stabilize here. All right, I think we should be about ready to go for them. I do have their sound turned up. I haven't heard anything from them. If we don't have sound for them, that's we'll just roll with it. We'll do what we can to keep things lively. But yeah, I think we're about ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and let them know that it's on them. Once they get going here, I'll full screen this and we'll just jump into it. We will watch them go.
Log in.
Okay.
Oh, we do have some audio.
Do it, everybody.
All right, let's keep comms on them, please.
Yeah.
Zidane in the chat did point out that the leaderboards on the speedrunning Discord are a different starting point. You don't have to kill those 3 treants. So the 8-minute runtime is a pretty good barometer, but we'll kind of have a we'll set what the bar is here with this group today and see what we're kind of working with.
I'm not in
So
the group either. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was doing it. Yeah.
All right.
Run in as soon as you get group invite.
Oh,
Yep.
running. Is
Just
your
need
mana
right
good? Like,
now.
are we good to go immediately if that's the case? No.
Yeah,
we're
I'm
not.
just doing a reload real
missing
quick.
Slumber?
Give me one
They
second.
should be able
What's in
to.
my group invite batched with me entering.
They're just getting their group set up here. I'm guessing they were zoned in and then they all logged out for too long.
Loading in now. Make sure everyone's got their arcane pots on.
one thing I think is interesting to note is Isle's already pre-popped
Not a while.
a greater arcane protection potion. I'm pretty sure that's the symbol to the right of his Juju Flurry. So already prepping for that AoE damage that's going to go out on those first pylons. We do know that those Voidwalkers that they have to kill in order to get break down the shield for Immol'thar do have a fair amount of AoE damage going. So they're already prepping for that and trying to mitigate as much damage as they can going into this to help out the healer. I can't tell 100% sure because it's hard to tell under the chest, but it does look like the priest is rocking 8 out of 8 Transcendence from what I can see.
Yeah.
So trying to get that benefit of those greater heals off and getting the free renews just to get
So we
those
can
ticks
start at
going
the
on
top,
there. So
That distracting shot buff, I'm actually not sure
Right,
what that one is. The one that's far bottom right.
yeah, I have not seen that before either.
Let me scout it.
Now the arcane protection potion buff is the same icon as it's like prayer. It looks like prayer healing, if I remember correctly. So it's just
Okay,
the left of the
hold
Wind
on.
Fury,
3,
the 58-minute one.
2, 1.
Timer started. All right.
Looks like he was just a second late on
started.
starting that timer, but we'll figure that all out in post.
Keep moving.
So again, like pulling and using that first group, like that's just for us to have a really easy way of being able to tell where each group, how and when each group starts the run, rather than having it be more
There
arbitrary.
you go.
Hit me.
Got you.
So he already popped his Diamond Flask set, but he didn't put on any kind of healing set with that. So it looks like he's trying to get off a second usage of it.
It's clear.
I'm
It's clear.
assuming he's probably also got an
Sorry,
Earth Strike or something, so we'll probably see a trinket swap here shortly
good,
from
we're
Isle.
good.
But one of the biggest advantages of having a hunter in these groups is that aspect of the pack, as we're already seeing it when it comes to these kinds of dungeons where there's a fair amount of running to get around.
Yeah.
That is such a clutch
All right, pack off.
boon to your guys' speed.
Yeah, and you can see as they were running through here, they tried flaring and volleying. They were just trying to pull any potential invis mobs out so that they weren't going to get caught off guard by those later. They didn't come across any, which might mean that they get surprised here once they get up top.
So Pukin and Chad is saying that that
understood
is
exactly
an
what
arcane
the-
resistance that you get from emceeing
Yep.
Wielder.
a mob at EPL, which to
Sorry
be
about
honest with you,
that.
I was not familiar with that buff, but that definitely is another easy way of helping mitigate that damage, since that's arguably when some of the most damage that they'll get from these trash packs is off of those Void Walkers here.
Good. Now?
There you go.
A lot of grenade usage, which I think is just going to come, like, it's just an extra bonus thing. I think a lot of the people that are participating are probably going to have a lot of their raiders with engineering. It's just one of those things that's required in a lot of guilds that do, speed run raids and stuff like that.
Pot if you need to. Stay to the right.
It will be interesting to see when they pick their moment for sappers, because that's also a 5-minute
I got
cooldown
one.
on those.
So
So this is where you
So,
really
yeah,
have to be
I'm running-
selective
running
when you're
it.
popping those cooldowns. What kind of
I'm running
when
it.
you're gonna get the best bang for your buck for popping them, since
Could
you
just
may
not
not
watch
get
the
them
video.
again, depending on how fast you're running.
Yeah, my assumption, if I had to guess, would be that they would use them in this pull right here. They would pull all this stuff together, the skeletons and the voidwalkers, and sapper there.
Target damage down.
But they instead
Okay,
elected
is
to
it
do
up?
the two groups
Let's go.
separately.
Nading.
Yeah, they don't have quite as much AoE damage, since again you've got the Ellie Shaman, which will have the lightning bolt, but that's only going to hit up to 3 targets, and then you got Whirlwind, but and multi shots and a volley, but they don't have quite as much AoE damage as some of these other groups. So I think this is an area where we'll see with those skeletons and whatnot that some of the other groups may
I'm in combat. with
elect
you.
to go for a
What's
little
up,
bit more
Fiend?
balls to the wall kind of strategy and AoEing them down on
I'm
that
in
part.
combat as
But
well, and I'm
we'll see.
And it
Just
looks
run
like
as fast as you can.
these guys have a really good idea of what the aggro radius is on this boss that they're skipping right now. Because I think when most groups do DM West, like if they're gonna skip that boss, they kind of hug that like outside wall. But these guys just jumped right down. They ran just like right past him basically. So that kind of shows like they've probably practiced this. They probably have a really good idea of the aggro radius of every single mob in here.
Keep going. I got these.
There's a lot of micromanagement here of small things, like as they jump down, you have the warrior swapping his shield, just trying to take as little damage as possible. Every little bit of damage they don't take is one less thing the healer is going to have to heal, and means their mana bar is that much more in a better position to just keep rolling with it. So it's really interesting to see a lot of the micro plays that they're doing here, just to keep them flowing and not have any downtime.
Nor am I.
Yeah. It's also, the choice of having the Stam Spirit Flask, the ZG Flask, over the Speed one, I think that's probably just because they know anytime they're really moving, they're going to have aspect of the pack. But I don't know. I feel like the group has not dropped that below like any real dangerous health threshold yet. So I wonder
Not at all.
if we're going to see other groups elect to use
Taking
like
off
the
now.
Speed Flask from Zanza's.
Still in combat or no?
I'm in combat.
It is worth noting it does not stack with the Zanza, so I think it's a 5% difference in movement speed that you get with them, which
Where they are.
in these kinds of competitions, that 5% could be the difference between a dub and being at the bottom. You never know, but I think you are right, because they have that aspect of the pack. They know they can lean on that, which some of the groups won't have. So it will be interesting. They are very heavy on the
I'm at the door
on
now.
the HP. I can't see from the other guys, but I'm assuming the majority of them are rocking a flask right now.
Give me that.
I keep waiting for them to jump over these fires and get dazed, just because as a hunter, like I'm so used to just like running somewhat near a flame and getting dazed, and to see them just like jumping over these bonfires and torches,
Timing
I'm just
down,
like
target damage
waiting
down,
for it
2
to happen.
seconds On
Yeah, go.
grenading.
And they always, once you get dazed,
Shit.
you can't
Ooh,
stop.
they do
It's
have a
like,
lot of mobs
Open
coming.
everything.
Oh fuck.
oh yeah. Oh, we might get this wind pack coming.
I
Oh,
I think
no.
they're okay.
Joe, just kill it.
Immol'thar is very, very low on mana. That's their elemental shaman. Def Camp still looks like he's about 30%. That's their healer. They need to get these mana
Ripperino.
drainers down.
And he went into that fight with nearly a full bar, so he got chunked very quickly.
I need some help. Alright, we're good, keep going.
I think they're okay here, though. This definitely, this is as much as they're clearing this up, like this is added time, and it's hard to know like where all these mobs came from and how, and like any other group that's watching right now, like they might not actually be able to learn anything from this. So it'll be interesting to see if this happens again.
Immol'thar.
It looked like one of the
Yeah,
Invis mobs got
Yeah.
dragged with them and may have picked up a couple things.
Yeah.
That's what I think happened,
All they need
but
to
I
do is
can't
kill
be
it.
100%
It's
certain.
gonna hit us hard.
This is where you have that benefit of, because they've got a rogue and a warrior, even when everybody was pretty mana drained and pretty low, they had those guys to help make the difference up.
Yeah, if they had been a more caster heavy comp, like they wouldn't have been able to drink at all during that time. That would have been rough.
Wrecking.
Yeah, that would have been pretty dicey.
Looks like they're gonna get Immol'thar here. It'll be interesting to see what they do about the elf caster mobs here. If they're just gonna try to skip them completely, because sometimes
Looks like
they'll.
they are.
Fuck.
So they still have aspect of the pack on. Okay, they dropped it now because those guys will keep shooting fireballs at you.
On left.
Yeah, left, left, left.
Death
left.
Camp is real low right now. Their healer.
On mana, yeah.
that is.
If they can make it into this without pulling any of those wind elementals, I
Still gonna
think
go
they'll
under
be
8.
fine.
Yeah.
The last boss does not really do any damage. If you just
He's
I don't know how.
Yeah, I was about to say he's about to equip his
I think one
Diamond
of
Flask
us-
set, which
Keep
the
spirit
cooldown
direction,
may not even be up
it'll
by
be
the time
shifting.
they engage this boss, so they may not even get it off in time.
yeah, 17 seconds. Like they're probably gonna kill this before he even gets to pop the diamond flask.
All right, I got 750, 749.
Yeah,
About that.
same thing.
All right, they're saying 750. I know that
Yeah,
Ale
well,
was a little bit
If it wasn't for that,
slow
we would've,
starting his time, so
I got
I'll go ahead and
7
we can
guys.
update the leaderboard here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was still a very fast run. Obviously, there
Well,
were some
those little
mistakes,
stuff, guys,
but it was a much more
I'm happy.
conventional run
Yeah.
from these guys. And it'll be exciting to see how many groups try to just like do a conventional run and push the speed as much as they can, and how many groups are going to try to do things that are more outside the box that give them that edge, and whether they work or whether they backfire on them.
Definitely. Yeah, I think there's a couple areas people could have done, and it would have been interesting if they just tried to, I don't know, pop in noggin foggers to help skip a little bit more of that area when they went to do the jumps. So that was it was a really strong run. Got it a little bit dicey once they had those extra packs pulling in. Had they been more caster heavy, I think it would have been a different situation. But the Rogue and Warrior were able to help pull it out for him.
Yeah, so I've got the standings here. Obviously, we've only had one run, but currently Buzzbin and the Sunderberries have a 7-minute and 50-second run. So they actually beat, I believe, the current DM West leaderboard, which, as Zidane mentioned earlier, like the rules for the leaderboard are a little bit more lenient about where you start. So even with that, Buzzbin and the Sunderberries now officially have the fastest leaderboard time. We'll see if it stands up to the rest of these teams as we continue moving forward today.
Already breaking records today.
Already
It's,
breaking records. Yeah. So
Yeah, it
up
was a-
next. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it was 8 seconds. Was the time difference between that and the run that we currently had on the leaderboard. So
Yeah. So our next run is actually going to start here in about 8 minutes. So we're gonna have We're gonna have pretty quick turnarounds for the runs today. We've given teams about 20 minutes. So that means that we're gonna be kind of chipping through these as quick as we can. If you have anything else you want to mention about Buzzbin and the Sunderberries, we can do that real quick before jumping in and kind of talking a little bit more about Salty.
nothing specific I haven't gone through. It was a really solid run. I would have been interested to see if they had that Diamond Flask set, the healing set, if they could have just gone push it even a little bit harder. That said, there is a lot of downtime in that instance inherently built in because you just have to get to the pylons. So probably wouldn't have been quite the difference maker. I will say I am about to post a poll in the chat. We're going to ask you guys, what is your favorite team name? Just kind of get the juices flowing. Curious to hear. We've got some great names for teams, and be curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are. So I'm going to be posting that right now.
All right. So yeah, if you check out chat right now, Dr. Phil X, that is my co-host Shrek. If you guys want to jump into that straw poll, vote on your favorite team name. I think with that we'll probably take like a tiny little break here before we jump into and introduce the next team.
We'll hear from our sponsors.
From our sponsors, yes, of course. All right, we will, I guess, be right back, probably about 1 minute, and then we will introduce Salty and move into the next run. All right. I am back. I don't know if Shrek is back.
Yes, sir.
Shrek is back here too. All right. So we do have about 4 or 5 minutes here. Before we get into the next team, I'll go ahead and we'll go to this page, and we're going to be looking at Team 2 Salty. And just like getting ready for their run, which should be taking place here in about 4 minutes.
So this team hails from Fairlina, so another U.S.-based team. Going to be a little bit more heavy on the mana side between the Warlock and the Mage. So a little bit of a different team comp. Won't have that aspect of the pack going into this run, so they're going to lose a little bit of time during those transitions. The last team didn't institute any Goblin Rocket Boots or any kind of speed trinkets or anything like that during those runs, so we'll be interested to see if some of these teams that don't have hunters integrate some of those trinkets or some of those movement speed bonuses into their runs as well a little bit more for the runs where we're going to be missing a hunter.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how, if any, the differences are between Alliance and Horde in general and what they're able to get done.
Definitely. This will be a good team to watch. So this is another Horde team. I should say they got confirmation on that.
Nice.
So I'm not. It looks like we'll be probably team 4 or 5 will be our first Alliance entry. For sure 5, but I'm not sure. We'll have to look up and see if 4.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get in touch with them right now. Doing my best to try to verify that they are good to go.
Just another plug. I've got a poll going right now for what's your guys' favorite team name. We've already gotten a chunk of votes and starting to get some of the results coming in. We've got our analysts on the line doing some deep number crunching to really determine, make sure we're giving you the most up to date, best results possible. But make sure your voice is heard. I think get the vote out.
Yeah, I'm not hearing back from them at the moment. I did reach out to all the teams this morning just to verify what time they were running, hoping that I could get some information from them. But I haven't heard from them today, so we will see if they are able to show up. They've got about 1 more minute. If they're unable to make it, then we have a couple options. We can either watch the leaderboard run, which was just trounced by Buzzbin and the Sunderberries, or we can spend a little bit more time talking about these groups that are moving forward. Or the group after Team 2 Salty is going to be going at, what would that be, 1:40 Eastern? So it would just be a 20 minutes of us potentially looking at another run and prepping for Team 3 Smooth Brain Gang. Thank you, Isle Gaming, for the raid, by the way. So, Ale, sorry if I'm butchering your name. He was the one who was streaming their previous run. Def Camp as well was in that. They're like showing up to chat. Welcome, guys. Thank you for your participation, your first run. I think you guys did an amazing job. You did get unfortunate there with that extra pack getting pulled, but I think you guys, you handled it well and you kept moving, so that was important. Yeah, shout out to Def Camp and Melderon for joining us for this competition today. I appreciate you guys taking the time to come and run a dungeon, getting fully world buffed using consumes. Every team really for going and putting in this extra effort. I know that most people, most guilds, they already spend 1 or 2 nights a week getting buffed and spending consumes. So adding in an additional thing like this, it can add a lot to what people are already doing. So I appreciate everyone for being here.
Yeah, and then I will say, as a fellow orc warrior myself, world buff meta is nobody. I don't think anybody walks into it saying they enjoy waking up in their morning and looking up to get their world buffs. But you do love the way they feel, especially as a warrior. It feels good to smash. So it was awesome to see those big numbers for you guys and blast them through. So it was fun to see that clean run, or relatively clean run. It's always tough in those speed running competitions where it just takes one small thing to throw you off the game and really kind of set your run off a little bit. So I know you guys were pushing for that sub 7, and I'm confident that these leaderboards don't go away. So depending on what happens today, you guys can always submit another run and claim that top spot again. That hunger doesn't have to go away today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that goes for anyone watching right now. Like if you're watching these and you're excited about what they're doing and you want to go and try your own dungeon speedruns, like the leaderboards are open for anyone anytime to go and do a run, record it, submit it. We're going to keep doing this stuff all the way up until the very, very end of Classic, and then we're just going to carry it over to TBC. So I encourage everyone to go and take a look at what we've got going on there. I am at the point where I don't believe that Team 2 Salty is actually going to be here participating today. So I'm gonna ask you, Shrek, what you think we should do moving forward. If you think we should watch that, the leaderboard
I would say
run.
let's watch the leaderboard run, and then we can start talking about Team 3 a little bit.
Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna load up the leaderboard run. So again, this is not this run is not a part of the competition. This was just a random group who got together and decided that they wanted to run DM West. So we'll jump in here. I'll get this set up real quick, and we'll see how they did. Again, they did have different rules. So even though they were beat today, they actually got to start their dungeon a little bit further in. So they didn't have to make that first pull at the very beginning of the dungeon like all of our teams do today. So this is our first group. Again, this team is from the server Netherwind and the guild Bimpist. And this is going to be a very melee-heavy group. And this was, again, just an example of what teams are capable of. I think a lot of our teams today probably watched this run to see what was possible. So we'll get this going here.
Again, this one, the timing doesn't start with the treants, so you'll see the timer's about to start as soon as they're running into the walkers. So that's about a 4 to 5 second difference right off the bat. And considering there's an 8-second difference between our first team's time and what the original leaderboard time, I think that had we had the original treant requirement from the beginning, that time would even been past 8 minutes, or this time would have been over 8 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that honestly just gives more credit to Buzzbin and the Sunderberries. Like, they had to make an extra pull, kill extra mobs, and they still beat these guys. And these guys were running a melee heavy comp, which is probably, I mean, they were just running this on their own free will. So they knew it was DM West. They made their comp based on that. They went melee heavy. All this to say that our teams today, I think, are going to be beating this run a lot, and I think that has to do with them being prepped and ready, and them, being willing to go kind of the extra mile to get it done today and potentially to win some money.
And I think one thing that the first team did that I think other teams are going to institute as well is Dire Maul West has a lot of those invisible mobs that pop up and will keep you in combat, can potentially, if you're dragging things and aren't aware that they've started hitting you, could bring them into pull some other packs, similar to what we saw with the first team, with that pack that they inadvertently pulled on the last pylon that they were trying to clear. This run, they have most world buffs, but they are missing the Zanza, which does give you the movement speed, and they're missing Oni. So they are missing a couple things here that the first team did have. But similarly, they are also rocking that Arcane Protection Potion. They also have a Nature Protection Potion popped, in addition to the usual kind of warrior consumes you would see.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. It doesn't look like, is that the movement Zanzapod actually? So,
I believe it is. The yellow one. Yeah. So they did opt to go that way. They don't have a hunter, so and they don't have a ZG buff even. So they're kind of, I mean, they're going about this the way that they thought was probably best as far as comp goes. And it looks like maybe they came in after a raid or something where they just used the rest of the world buffs that they already had, which I think is a great thing that has actually been brought up to me a couple times. These dungeon runs, because they're so fast, they can be something that you do right after you finish a raid night. So let's say you have a shorter raid night and you get done and you still have half an hour or more on your 2-hour buffs. There's no reason you can't just say like, hey, let's get together, let's go run a dungeon for speed, because you're still going to have a lot of your buffs, and it's going to be, you aren't going to have to go through the whole process of getting buffed just to do one of these.
That's actually a discussion that a few of my guildies have had. They've when we go clear BWL and while we're transitioning to MC or something, some of them propose trying to go sneak in a stealth Dire Maul North run, or trying to run through an Elbers or something like that and just blast it within about 10 minutes or so while people are guiding drinks, going to the bathroom or whatever. So,
yeah, absolutely.
They did pull the optional boss here, Farah, on this one, so this is an instance of a mob they did not need to kill. So, but they did pop the Goblin Rocket Boots earlier, so I did see that they are doing a couple things here on this run that the other team did not. That potentially some teams can employ to make up some of the time, especially for the teams that are lacking a hunter.
Yeah. There's all sorts of movement speed increases. You have rocket boots, you have Skull of Impending Doom, you have Nifty Stopwatch. There's a lot of resources that teams can utilize without having that hunter for aspect of the pack. That being said, I fully endorse people bringing a hunter to these types of runs. That's just my personal bias, but I think that it's more fun when you bring a variety of classes, and that's one of the reasons we have our one of each class max rule today.
Yeah, and as we saw, that class stacking was played very heavily into the last contest when we did Skolo. The team that ran was 4 warriors and a shaman. So it makes a very different dynamic when you have to be a little bit more selective with classes, and particularly with this case when you don't know what dungeon you're getting into. So you kind of have to be prepared. Since there are those dungeons where people can be, immune to magic and whatnot, or immune to physical. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that was, like you said, depending on the dungeon. I think if teams had known that it was DM West, they probably would have had different comps than what they ended up here with, which, for the purpose of these competitions, I really want to be throwing a wrench into people's norm. That's sort of my goal. I want to watch runs that are kind of out of the box, kind of unconventional, because I honestly think that's where we as viewers are going to have the most fun, and we're going to learn the most. Because if you're going and running these dungeons with a pug, chances are you're not going to have the perfect comp. So it's fun watching. It's fun watching groups come in and really push speed, even with a less than ideal comp, because then you still see what the capabilities of them are.
And there's things about these dungeons we're still uncovering too that we're not. Last week we found out with Skullomance that there is a requirement of how many of the mobs you have to kill to get Gandling to spawn. It's not just killing the mini bosses. And one of the groups, my group actually, was the one that found that out rudely, had a rude awakening when that happened. So I'll be interested as we run more of these dungeons if there's any other requirements that are kind of unknown, because nobody's really pushing the envelope on these at this point.
Yeah, that was for anyone who missed the first Classic Dungeon speed competition. It was Skullomance. One of the big thing was that teams just didn't know it was Skullomance until something like 12 hours ahead of time, so they really didn't have any time to prepare. And Shrek here was one of the contestants. He's moved from contestant to co-host, and his group, like he said, they got to the last rooms before Gandling with the different teachers. And it turns out the room that has the Oculus, which are the mobs that once they get to a certain HP threshold, they switch to dark shades and they become immune to physical damage. If you don't kill all of those mobs, Gandling will not spawn. So just like you have to kill all the bosses, you also have to kill all of that trash. which for a comp that's very melee heavy, that's potentially going to skip those mobs. That was a rude awakening, I think. But it was something that, yeah, under what circumstances would any group ever learn that they're required, other than having a unique classic dungeon speed competition?
Boots on was big brain.
Definitely got to be pushing that envelope.
So these guys are moving through here. You can see they're actually like right around the same time as Buzzman and the Sunderberries. I think a lot of it actually comes down to aspect of the pack here. Like aspect.
Yeah, I think you're really seeing it showcased in this moment here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some serious downtime while they're running.
Yeah, even if this group, I think, had come in here with a hunter instead of that rogue, there's a chance that they would have been able to clear it that much faster. But again, the rogue brings its own utility to it.
So this same group also did a DM East clear that also hit the record board, and it's a fun run. I recommend you guys check it out on your own time, because I'll say, spoiler alert, but one of the members gets lost at one point, and they have to kind of find each other again, which is an interesting moment to have in a speed run. So I recommend you guys check that out when you have a moment.
Yes, I love waking up in the morning and see the new people have posted runs to the leaderboard submission channels, because it means that I get to watch people run dungeons quickly, and that's like just something that I love doing. That's why we're here today. But it's also really cool to see what kind of strategies these different groups come up with, because it's easy. I think most of us have an idea of how long dungeon runs take. Like even thinking about LBRS as a run that's like, oh man, that's probably like 45 minutes to an hour. The fastest LBRS right now, even with like the caveat of they were only really going for Wormthalak, is right around 10 minutes. So when you start thinking about these dungeons and like the time investment, it's really not a lot. When you like, the whole thing with running these dungeon speedruns is that you can probably, if you're going to like take the time to get world buffs and use consumes, you can probably get a lot of reps in and try a lot of interesting things in the time that your buffs are ticking down. And I think that's one of the cool things too, is that with raids, you don't have that. You get one shot at it and then you're locked out for a week. So whether it goes well or whether it goes poorly, that's your result. But with these dungeon runs, like people can keep practicing and keep trying to get better at them even before they start using world buffs and consumes. And I hope that that's going to lead to us really seeing like not necessarily like min-max to the extreme, but just seeing like all of these new and innovative strategies that can go into running dungeons quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of innovative, things, we've been working directly with the team responsible for ESPN's next generation stats. So throughout the rest of the program, we're going to be hitting you with some of the latest and hottest analytics from the WoW world. And I just got off the phone with that team, and they just told me today that one interesting fact that they've seen that's common but not the most common is that there is a warrior in every group comp today. That is the one class that has 100% representation.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy too to think about. Like we've got now 8 teams running, and there's a warrior in every single one. Like it's an outstanding statistic for us to have and to be able to share with you guys.
It'll be interesting as we get into TBC2. That's when you really start open up the variety of tanks that are available. And I think when group comps start to get a little bit more even wilder, when you see a little bit more bears become more commonplace, and then you get the paladin tanks too, which offer some very interesting utility. Yeah,
and I think one of my goals as we continue to move into future competitions here is to maybe put in some restrictions about what tanks people can bring to these dungeons, because I think there is some variety in what you can do in Classic, especially in dungeons. I know that for paladin tanks in general, like it doesn't really work in raids due to their like threat generation, due to not having a taunt. But I have heard and would be interested to see how a paladin tank would do in this sort of dungeon environment, especially where, threat I don't think comes into play very much here. As we've been watching these runs, I don't think that any of these groups, while they have warriors, are using them as like a conventional tank. I think that mostly it's a healer and 4 DPS is what these groups are doing. So does a paladin bring enough utility for them to, potentially tank or DPS on one of these runs? I'd love to see someone try. So if anyone out there is a big fan of prop paladins or even ret paladins, go run one of these dungeons. Go submit for the leaderboard, fight for a top time, show us that your class and your spec are something that can perform well in this environment.
Yeah, we've got on our server Stalag, we've got a few of those Lone Ranger shaman tanks too on the Horde side as well. So there's a lot of haters out there, a lot of non-believers. Prove them wrong. I'd love to see that, So there's a couple people out there. I've got a buddy of mine who's actually working on. He just last night was sending me his 60 upgrades, what his BIS list for his shaman tank set is. So I feel like we're about to once Nax hits and KT's been down for a little bit, it's going to become an interesting lawless land of meme specs and people who are just playing the game because they just genuinely want to play it in however form they want. So it's people say that Classic is coming to an end, but I think it's a new dawn, if you will.
Oh yeah, and I think that a big part of that is, the farther we get, even in Nax, there's so much gear that helps these off specs potentially, come up and actually perform the things that maybe they've been wanting to do all of Classic. And so I'm personally really excited to see where we get to once a lot of guilds have Nax on farm and a lot of these off specs begin to snag that Nax level gear and even like AQ40 level gear, just to start showcasing like, okay, if when you're in the actual end game of vanilla, what's viable? Because I think for the most part, people don't really know. Because the only examples I think that people really have come from private servers, and a lot of times private servers would die, after a guild clears Nax a couple times, just because there wasn't a TBC coming. There wasn't any reason to continue to farm like there, I think, is in Classic. And so really taking the time to dive into that is going to be a lot of fun, and continue to do these types of things, like continue to run dungeons and really see what players are capable of.
And I'd argue in some cases that's kind of the roots of what WoW vanilla was. I didn't play much in the way of private servers. I also haven't played much in the way of expansions. I've really only ever played vanilla and classic WoW. And back in vanilla, I played a hunter, and one of my guildies at the time was obsessed with being a melee hunter. And he had ash candy well before ash candy was ever considered a hunter weapon, and was rocking a myriad of other things, and was convinced that he could be a raptor strike god. So I think that those roots of those off specs and viability of still being a wide open world are still there and can definitely come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. This next team is ready to go. I think they might be setting up here. I'm just
We
going
got
to
the
let
Thunder
them know.
Fury coming in, our first legendary of the day. So this team fares from Fairbanks, and it's Horde, as you can tell. So another U.S. team. We do have a couple of EU teams making their foray into the competition this go around, which is super exciting to see. Getting to making it a global scale. Next event will be intergalactic, I believe. We got some Martians who may be coming in, but yeah.
No, we have to wait 1 minute. We can't start till 10:20. But they said go whenever we're ready. Just check.
Durant said start whenever we're ready.
So this is a more caster heavy comp, obviously. Looks like we're rocking another Ellie Shaman, and then I got the Priest, but then we got the Warlock and the Mage in here. So basically swapping out that Hunter and that Rogue for the two other casters. So they've just started it up. I guess we'll see how what they got in store for us.
Yeah, I didn't see a timer, so we might have to double check their VOD for the timer as they go through here.
We'll blow up Skull first, I guess.
Yep. Watch the big trees. Square next.
Oh fuck! I popped boots. Finger. Be alright. operations mark.
Boots.
Popping boots here just for that extra speed, because this, again, they don't have a hunter in this group, so we might see more of those movement speed items utilized here.
They've already popped their goblin rocket boots. Speak of the devil, the mage has, so he's charming it up. There's some more goblin rocket boots coming out.
So typically right here, I think there ends up being 1 or 2 invisible patrols. And if I had to guess, I would say that first group that went, the thing that kept them in combat might have been one of the invisible patrols that's around here. Because the thing with those patrols is they stay invis until they basically get to you. So you can outrun them. They move slow when they're invisible. But they will keep you in combat the whole time. So
Put it on.
They do not have a timer running on there. I started a stopwatch that's probably about 10-15 seconds late, so they've just gotten over a little bit over the minute mark at this point.
gotcha. It looks like they might be trying. Oh, they pulled mobs up top as well as down below. They're just kiting everything together, it seems like.
Good.
Continuing to move even though they've got mobs behind them.
Go.
Does have a nifty stopwatch and diamond flask queued up, so I'm assuming they'll probably use more movement when they get to the bridge here, because that's one of the longer downtimes, but we'll see when they decide to pop it.
I'm gonna kill this one on me. I'm gonna take the mana burn.
Health is dropping a little low here. They did have those extra mobs behind them that they kind of had to deal with while they pulled these. But it looks like they're going to clean this up, and then they'll get all that time running across to sort of regen back up.
Make sure you're
Using some sappers to help try to push it over.
Looks like the mage is sort of taking the lead here as far as like getting out ahead and pulling mobs as they go.
I can slap my healing flask set on.
And there are a couple of those invisible mobs that we have been talking about. So he hasn't popped the movement trinket quite yet, so we'll see when they're going to be using this. I'm assuming they'll try to use it in unison, like they did with their rocket boots for the most part.
Go.
Hang on, I'm swapping.
He's getting his diamond flask going.
Diamond flask is rolling.
Okay, make sure you have nifty on, guys.
Focus second aberration.
And that's just going to help this warrior like stay alive, but more importantly, like it's less healing that he needs to take, which means that the healer's going to save mana.
All right, let's go.
All right, nifty.
And as you can see, they've already gotten a couple. They've had a couple downtimes where they had to just drink, and they tried to get a couple ticks off before engaging, because everything they're doing is very mana intensive, because they've been all doing AOE, and Ellie Shaman is just burning through that mana too. So they've had a couple pauses, but they look like they're decent mana right now. So hopefully they don't have to make too many more pauses for the rest of us, but we'll see. There they go, popping those trinkets, the speed trinkets there.
Yeah. As they go through here, I know there's at least one invis mob. There might be 2 that they end up having to deal with. It's just extra time that you have to spend killing stuff that you have to plan for. And again, I think it's going to come down to like the teams that know where exactly all these invis mobs are, which can be difficult. Like kind of like we said before, if you zone into an instance, everything starts moving. All the patrols start moving. So while they've been practicing, they might have an idea of where all these invis mobs are supposed to be. But if they zone into these dungeons and they have to wait for their time to start the run, or they're just like getting in early to get in safely, like it changes a lot of stuff. So they have to be ready to, run into these invis mobs or patrols in positions that they're not always used to.
I am surprised he wasn't trinket swapping. He did swap to get to Earthstrike, but that's a 30-minute cooldown on that stopwatch, so that trinket's done for this run. So I'm surprised we didn't get a swap to something else, get a little bit more utility out there. But I know how hectic these things can kind of get when you're in the moment too.
Oh yeah, when you're talking about doing something in less than 8 minutes, I'm sure everyone's gonna miss something at some point.
Yeah, my boots.
And they've just eclipsed. They're about at 5.5 minutes right now, just to give you a rough time check. There's the goblin boots, rocket boots popping off.
Yep.
It looked like they popped them in different. So I saw it was the Ellie Shaman and the Mage popped it the first round. So it looks like they've staggered their rocket boots that they're using.
Did you get the door candles?
No, not yet. I can grab it though, and I'll have boots up.
Oh, maybe they brought different pairs. Sorry about that, because they just popped theirs too.
Yeah, I think they might have brought multiple pairs. He does still have Nifty Stopwatch on, which I'm sure he's gonna watch this back later and kick himself a little bit.
Pull X first. Pulling X first.
Yeah, so I'm a carry in the chat. A former speedrunning champ brought up what we kind of talked about earlier about that flask set and how if you have a really strong flask set, you can even have a warrior potentially solo one of these packs if they're really tactful with how they're pulling them as well, which is the exact tactic they had employed in the Skullmancer run that we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how they go about doing that, because I don't think that a warrior could necessarily pull like the full group with the diamond flask on, but he could probably, because the buff lasts for a minute, he could probably pull one or two mobs at a time, and clear one of those pylons by himself.
Yeah, I know that you can't solo pull those mobs, but you can break them off into two. They do pretty often pull as three, but 2 to 3 could be manageable, especially with a good flask set. With the gearing that we're at this point, the Warriors, it's pretty ridiculous, the mitigation, especially with the tier 2.5 and whatnot. So they still have those guys aggroed hitting them with fireballs. We'll see how far they get chased with these guys and how they kind of manage that, if they're just going to tough it through and try to pull that, the final boss anyway.
Yeah, they are sort of dodging around these wind elementals. They do still have mobs on them. A lot of times those mobs despawn, and I think there might be a trick to getting that to happen. It might just be RNG.
Just jump down.
Either way, I think they'll be able to jump down here and kill the boss before those mobs ever actually catch up and make any difference.
Yeah, I think that'll be the case, especially since it looks like Warriors got wreck up here.
Fuck, I got booped.
Nice job, guys.
What was that finish time?
8:18.
So it sounds like 8:18. I don't know if that lines up with what you have, Shrek.
That looks probably pretty rough. My timer was, again, 10-15 seconds late, and it was just about to eclipse the 8-minute mark.
Okay. So we can put them down as a tentative 8:18. And we can always come back here and check this specific VOD and figure that out if it comes down to it. If it's clear that they are potentially going to be in the top 2, we will definitely verify that.
Still a very strong run. They had a couple areas that looked like they got hung up on. Unfortunately, having to get those drink ticks off with the heavy caster group, it looks like it kind of bit them a little bit. So I think that they had an interesting use of the Goblin Rocket Boots that we didn't see in the first group, and also the nifty stopwatches, kind of making up for that aspect of the pack that they were lacking. So, but I think had they not pulled that extra pack when they were transitioning to the higher level, not had to get quite as many drink ticks off, that could have been the 20 seconds that they needed.
Yeah, I'm just verifying some times with the different teams right now. Just to make sure. Yes, Smooth Brain Gang is saying 8:18. It sounds like Buzzbin and the Sunderberries are 7:49 is what they say. And again, like we can update this as we go. And if it does come down to 1 second or 2 seconds, we will go back and we'll verify just by watching the VODs and the timestamps on the VODs when exactly or what time exactly each team got. So we will be sure to verify those things. We've got about 10 seconds now until the next team goes. That next team is going to be the Better Rewind.
So the Better Rewind, this is a team that is actually our first EU team coming from Gehennis. So they are Alliance. We've got the Priest, Warrior, Hunter, Mage, Rogue comp going into this.
Yeah, so pretty similar to like our earlier Hunter comp. I think we even said when we started like Team 4 and Team 1 we're going to be pretty similar. The only real difference is the Mage versus the Elemental Shaman. The big thing there is, does the Mage do enough damage and bring enough utility to make up for the totems? And we'll see. We'll see. That might not even be the factor that plays into this. It might just be, that Buzzbin and the Sunderberries, they had those extra mobs pull that they had to deal with. If the Better Rewind doesn't have that, that might be enough. But as we get closer, we'll definitely be able to, we'll jump into that run. We do have about 9 more minutes here. Do we have the results from that first poll?
We do. Let me go pull that up. All right, so we had a total of 46 votes. Taking first place was Buzzbin and the Sunderberries with 19 of the votes, so 41% of the vote. Second place was Smoothbrain Grain with 8 votes, and then just under that was the Better Rewind with 6 votes. So some great names. Salty and Empire, I'm sorry you did not get any votes this go around, Salty. You didn't make it to the competition, so that makes sense. But Empire, better luck next time.
Yeah, Buzzbin and the Sunderberries coming in strong with that vote.
Strong start.
Yeah. If we handed out prizes for team names, you guys would win. Unfortunately, we don't.
Yet. Who knows?
Yet.
There's always
Yet.
next competition.
Absolutely.
So this team does have a Hunter. So they will be getting that aspect of the pack. It'll be interesting to see if they also choose to employ any of the additional movement speed abilities. Got them rocket boots, definitely go a lot faster, but they do have the drawback of they can explode and you could get screwed over. So it is a boom or bust kind of play. But we will see if there's what they kind of decide to do and how they break it up, and if they do anything different or if they follow a little bit of a different path compared to the last group.
Yeah, I mean, it's such small details at this point that I think are going to make or break a team. And that's why I'm definitely I'm excited for, teams to try to do wacky things. Because I think that there might be opportunities for teams to like kind of go all or nothing to like, even make up like 5 or 10 seconds. And that might be the final difference in the runs today. I'm just confirming with other teams that are coming down the line. Make sure that they're all going to be set. But yeah, I think things are moving well here. I kind of assumed that every team would be about that, 8 minutes or faster time today, just because of what we were able to see from that leaderboard run. I think that not being able to stack melee or stack whatever classes you want is already kind of playing a factor in that. Yeah, we can show someone in the chats asking for the timings. This is actually our standings right now. So team 2 unfortunately was not able to make it today. So we only have 2 times listed so far. Buzzbin and the Sunderberries at 7 minutes and 50 seconds or 49 seconds, somewhere in there. We'll definitely double check that. And then Smooth Brain Gang at 8 minutes and 18 seconds. So I know that when Buzzbin and the Sunderberries, they came by the stream after they got done, they said in their practice run they got sub 7 minutes. So I think the door is wide open for most teams to probably come in here and still take the whole thing. And it kind of goes to show, like, similar to how raid speedrunning works, you can do really well in practice, you can do really well on the PTR. But what I like about these live competitions is that you have to show up and you actually have to get it done. And that's where it's fun to watch and see, under the pressure of, all these people watching, how are you able to perform?
And we have, and it goes to show you, we have not had a clean run yet. Each team has had a couple hiccups. There's been no disastrous runs. We haven't had any wipes, knock on wood. But we have had some teams that pulled some extra mobs they weren't expecting, or had to drag mobs a little further than I think they were planning on, and so they definitely were a little bit more strapped for mana than I think they would have liked to be. So we'll see if any of these teams get a truly clean run today, and what kind of how far they can push it, because sub 7 is definitely in the cards, if not more than that.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping that we break that 7-minute timer. Yeah. So it sounds like our next group, they are going to be ready here. Once we get to them, we've got about 4 minutes until they come up. I do want to jump in and maybe at this time talk a little bit about the prize pool. So as I've posted in the Discord on my channel, we do have a $150 US prize pool for today. The first place team gets $100, so split between the 5 people, that's $20 per person. And then the second place team gets $50, split between the 5 people is $10 per person. All that money, everything that comes with that prize pool, that's all just been generated by this stream. I'm trying to do my best to, like, everything that the stream generates, I want to feed back into these competitions. So by being here today, by following the stream, you guys are supporting this. You guys are making these future competitions happen. You're, in a sense, providing the prize pool. So thank you all for being here, for your support today. The other thing that teams get is that they are forever immortalized as contest champions in the Classic Dungeon Speed Discord. So again, if you're not in that Discord, I'll do a quick exclamation point Discord in the chat. It's that first Discord, the Classic Dungeon Speed. That's where we're at. That's where everything is currently housed. That's where we talk about these contests and competitions. That's where the leaderboards are. And that's where you'll see who has been, who has the top spots in the leaderboards, who has won these competitions, and who's just been competing in general. And we're trying to do our best with that to showcase everyone who's been participating, and like putting themselves out there and doing these runs, because I really want people to feel at least some sort of reward for just jumping in and being a part of these things, because I appreciate every single one of the competitors for coming out here today. I know that, again, it requires extra buffing and consumes, but I hope that, even if you don't place in the top 2, it's been a fun experience, and it, maybe gets you running more of the regular leaderboards, or just running dungeons in general.
Weren't you also weren't you recently talking about this on I can't remember which podcast was it?
Yeah, that's true. So I was actually on Classic Reloaded, and talking about Classic Dungeon Speed. So I got to talk with Blazin' Bob and Pitt and Mel, and just talk about what we're doing here and the exciting things that we've got going on and my plans for the future. So if you're interested at all in maybe learning a little bit more about who I am, my background with WoW, and maybe hearing, some good conversation about this Discord and this community, because they brought up some really good questions about having categories for no world buffs, and other things like that, just to try to bring more people in. I had a ton of fun chatting with them, and then I was on another podcast that should be coming out here soon. I was on People of Azeroth, and we spent a lot of time not talking about Classic Dungeon Speed. It was a lot more about me, and then we spent a lot of time talking about hardcore leveling. But we do dive into more Classic Dungeon Speed near the end of that. So I'm trying to get the word out, trying to build this community, just to get people more excited about running dungeons in general, and maybe participating in the leaderboard, but most of all, just playing your characters. Go out, run a dungeon with some mains, see what it's like, see how much fun it is, and then from there maybe venture into one of these competitions or venture into the leaderboards. It looks like the team is going to be logging in here very shortly, so I'm going to get them all set up.
So this is going to be the first Alliance team that we're going to be showcasing today. Again, first EU team that we've actually had in any of the competition too, hailing from Gehennis. So super exciting to see a team coming from over the pond, and we'll see what they got in store. You know, I think as we said, they're a very similar team competition composition to our first team. So depending on what they're kind of going for and how they kind of decide to utilize the AOE that they have a little bit more at their fingertips than the first team had, this could be a very interesting run.
Yeah, I think their plan here, because I was chatting with them a little ahead of time, I think their plan is to actually run out, reset the dungeon, and then come back in and get started. So they're taking advantage of the understanding that patrols are going to be exactly where they know they should be if they reset the dungeon right before they do this. So they're coming in here, see it's all reset, the mobs are back up. They do have paladin buffs, but they only have the 5-minute version. So if anyone that has sort of an understanding of how some of the buffs work in Classic, they only have the 5-minute versions because in order to have the 10-minute versions, they would need a paladin to stay in their group, or the buffs would drop off. So the 5 minutes, you can toss them on anyone, and they're going to last forever. But those like improved versions only stay on if that paladin stays in your group. So the 5 minutes are perfectly fine. It's those 15 that you're only going to get if you have the paladin in your group.
So a couple interesting things. Just looking at their buff bar right now, they did go for the Zanzipot as opposed to the Stampot, or sorry, the Speed Zanzipot as opposed to the Stam Zanzipot. They also seem to have that arcane resistance buff that the first team had, but additionally, they've actually gotten themselves the detect invisibility as well going on there. I think hoping to try to help find those mobs. The warrior does have a badge of the swarm guard, which is going to be super helpful when you're not going to be getting those sunders up on those ads. So it will help them maintain a little bit more AOE damage on some of these packs right here. As you see, they really are cutting through them right now with that badge popped.
Oh man, and one of the things chat brought up, like this warrior's got Flask of the Titans on. Like these guys are going all out for this run. I think this might be the first Flask that
the first team had a Flask actually.
Oh, the first team did. My bad. But
they are going hard here, as you can see.
So it looks like
very efficient with their pack right now.
So they're coming down here.
This is a completely different path than.
Yeah. This is a lot different. I'm wondering if they've somehow maybe found a way to pull Immol'thar without actually destroying all the pylons.
No, their mage is gone. So their mage might be going to do it by himself right now.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I don't see the mage, correct?
Right.
So their mage may be up there solo pulling it. We don't have a perspective on that right now, but he may be the hero of this run already.
He's got full health and mana. Looks like his mana is down a tiny bit now. But yeah, I wonder if that's their strategy. We do know for a fact that they zoned out and reset the instance, because we watched them do that. So it's not that they came in here early and they cleared those pylons. Their mage, I think, is out.
Well,
yeah.
Interestingly, the priest I did notice was mind visioning at the very beginning.
Oh.
So they may have been waiting for a particular pat off the bat before they started, because they didn't jump right into it. They had a couple mind visions go off before they had their actual run engaged. So I'm not sure what they were looking for there, if there was something specific, but I don't know. And that mage is not losing. He had lost a little bit of mana and a little bit of health, but is not sure what they're doing there.
Yeah, he's still...
could be that dagger from Mara, so it could be just regenerating a lot of mana too. But
that's true.
Still.
That's true. If he's using the Mara dagger, there's a good chance that while he's fighting those groups, he's actually able to retain quite a bit of mana. They did accidentally pull this air elemental here, and they are moving back. I wonder if they're going to move back towards this door, and if they're going to just continue on across and go to the other pylon, or if they're going to run back. It looks like they're moving forward.
And this is definitely the trickiest area to navigate. There's a lot of paths rotating around. This is the area that if a team were to wipe, I think this is where I'll be. If they get a couple accidental pulls in here, all the teams have managed to kind of mitigate that, but they have had some really close calls. Like the first team also had those additional packs that they pulled too. So,
oh man, they dropped a target dummy in the middle there just to help pull all of them and get initial aggro on something other than the players here. So the mage is like, he's dropped down a little bit on HP, dropped down a little bit on mana. Every time that hunter feigns, I think that he's just gone down.
I gotta tell you, I play a main as a warrior, but I also raid heavily as my shaman, and hunters give me a heart attack every raid, every single raid. I don't know what it is.
Oh, so there's the mage.
So he just got back. Oh, he's kiting them the whole way here.
He's kiting.
It looks like.
It looks like multiple.
Wow, that's both of the pylons and the skeleton pack. So he's pulled two
and
pylons
Invis mobs
and the Invis mobs. That's galaxy brain right there.
I mean, can they live through this? I guess. I mean, they're taking.
There's the sappers. Boom. You'll love to see those numbers fly.
Wow.
He's got the challenging shout going out, it looks like.
I think he challenging shout and then got
yeah.
got bopped and was just, he just absorbed all of it and took nothing.
They might pull that air pack. Ooh, good distract from the rogue. A really good distract there.
They did get one of those voids, the arcane voids, but I don't think that that's going to... I think that what they've done here is already going to give them a massive lead. I don't think they have a timer up. I don't see one. I kind of took note of what time they started the run, and they're actually about 4 minutes in right now.
They're kiting Immol'thar.
Kiting Immol'thar.
None of the other teams now. I don't know if he resets. If
he's dead now.
Far, but yeah,
they pulled more of these air elementals. Unfortunately, again, like I don't even think it makes a difference.
I wonder if they're just gonna have the hunter kite away the. I know it looks like they're killing them. I thought for a second they may have the hunter just kite him while they killed the final boss.
Yeah, I mean they might just move through here and not even worry about it.
Yeah, that's what they're gonna do. They're
just gonna kill the boss.
They have the hunter kite him, and they're just gonna go straight to the boss right now. Yeah,
because they'll probably kill him before the boss even gets down, or before those mobs even get down here.
And that is when your time is cut off.
That's it. So I mean, they have extra mobs coming, but their time is done. Wow. So based on my count, that was probably a sub 6 minute run. And that's like,
wow.
Yeah, that's I know for a fact I was a little off with when I started my timer, so we will double check with them and we will potentially come back and look at the VOD, but that was an insanely fast run from these guys.
Yeah, that's definitely the time to beat by a huge margin, and it's going to be interesting to see what of the other team compositions, if they're able to employ any similar tactics to chunk off that time. That's the most variability we've seen from any of the teams thus far. Mind you, there's only been 3 teams, so that we're not even halfway through the competition yet. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to continue innovating.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to get back from that team, figure out what their time was exactly.
We got in the chat someone saying 550. I got a couple people saying 550.
550. Right again, yeah, I had them as sub 6, so we can tentatively definitely put them down as 550. And then we can always double check the VOD if it comes to it.
This is a good time to remind all those competitors, if you're listening now, Empire, you're up next. Just remember, try to get that timer out there, so there's less confusion or less opportunity for us to second guess what your time might be.
Just getting the leaderboard updated here real quick.
So they did not have War Chief Blessing, which is something Alliance can do. Horde cannot get Paladin buffs. Alliance can get War Chief Blessing. This group did not get War Chief Blessing, which would have could have helped them a little bit more. They weren't with the 2 melee they had. That would have been a pretty nice boon in the damage. The mana is nice, but it seems like they didn't really have mana problems throughout that. That said, they did have the paladin buffs. Kings is nothing to slouch against. That as well as might. I almost would consider taking that over War Chief's blessing. Any day of the week. So that's
Yeah, absolutely. And then like they only had 5 minutes on those pally buffs because of what I mentioned at the start of the run. If their run, I mean, their run was under 6 minutes, so they had all those pally buffs basically through Immol'thar, which is just massive.
But yeah, you can see that because the first group had the ally shaman, so they were kind of able to pump through. Some of those ads dropped a lot quicker, but they did not have that ability to kite those mobs through there. That's an amazing pet. I wish we had a perspective from the mage so we could have seen how he pulled that off, but I guess it's a trade secret.
Oh man, yeah. The EU secrets right now on how that mage was able to get up there and do all that because yeah, I mean, you saw when he came down, he had some of the Invis pats and he had some like other random mobs with him. So he obviously was pulling much more than just those 2 packs. So for him to get all that and get down safely and be able to still help like set up, like you could see he was rank 1 blizzarding to keep everything kind of grouped up so that the rest of the party was able to jump in and just AoE everything down. Like it's one thing to be able to pull all that stuff, it's another to get it there and get it there all grouped up. So that was incredibly impressive by that mage. I wish we could see his perspective. Maybe if their group is in chat right now, they'll be able to maybe see if the mage was recording, but maybe not. Maybe they would want to keep that one to themselves for now.
Yeah, there are several other teams on here, so they probably don't want to reveal their hand quite yet, but who knows? We will be trying to get the winner of the competition in for a little bit of interview. Oh,
ooh, they do have mage point of view.
That's exciting.
That's super exciting. That might be something, yeah, like depending on who ends up winning this thing, maybe check that out after the fact, because I totally understand, yeah, not wanting to share it right now with teams still to go, but I think that would be an amazing thing to be able to watch.
It's like interesting to note that mage had to kite it down 2 separate flights of stairs where there's multiple areas where packs can get pulled, and they pulled very limited amount of ads that they didn't need to. You had the skeleton pack, you had the 2 packs, as you said, a couple invisible ads, which is essentially unavoidable, and then they had, I think I only saw 3, maybe 4 of the night elf ads on there, which I think is just the pack by the initial stairwell you go up. So they managed to avoid pulling a lot, even though they pulled a lot. That's kind of a counter argument, but it was very tactfully done, made it so that they got the necessary mobs without too many extras.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be able to watch it, just to see how they did that. How much of it was luck, how much of it was just them practicing it, and getting it down to the point where they knew they could get the right amount of mobs, and still be able to AoE them all down. So Puke in here was on that team. So congrats to you guys for taking the top slot so far. That was very exciting, very fun to watch. That whole time, just we were sitting here waiting, like watching the mage's health and mana. I can only imagine being like in voice and potentially hearing him as he was getting all that stuff pulled and checking on his status while you guys are still trying to move very quickly, very efficiently, because like if he had gotten to you guys too soon, you wouldn't have been in position. So that was all just very well orchestrated. Both of his boots broke immediately. I wonder if Recoil 889 is the mage. Slurp. Gotcha.
Well, we do have our next EU team. The last EU team of the competition is coming up next. So very, very similar composition, just swapping a priest for a paladin. So they will have those 15-minute buffs being able to run throughout the entire duration of it.
Yep.
And the paladin, as we know, is incredibly mana efficient. So I think, we'll potentially have even less mana problems, although mana did not seem to be an issue for the last group at all, compared to the group prior to them.
Yeah, so far we haven't really seen. The only time I think mana really came into play was when Buzzbin had those extra mobs show up, and even then they were fine. Def Camp still had plenty of mana. It was more so that their Elemental Shaman Melderon ran out. But yeah, overall, I don't think mana has been a very big issue here. All the people out there that were worried about flask potting to try to keep up with mana, I don't think that that's something that any group has even needed yet. So we haven't quite hit that level of try hard.
And that was the reason we're not doing these on the PTR. That was a concern because it's the PTR. People don't care about blown whatever because they can just recopy their characters over. So there was a worry that if we let people run on the PTR, which is easier to keep buffs on, since you just copy a couple characters over, but people were worried that they would be flask potting with the flask of distilled wisdom. So that is my understanding, one of the main reasons why we're doing it. We're doing it live.
Yeah, I do think it's important to do it live, just so that people have the regular repercussions of using different consumables and things. Other than we spend a lot of time farming these things. If you're faced with the choice of using them for a dungeon speed run, you might be less likely to do it. But if you can do it on PTR, then people will be able to go and pop everything, do whatever they want without any sort of second thought to it. So I do like that doing it live makes people really consider how far they're willing to push it, even though there is money on the line. Light of a Loon. Yeah, Light of a Loon is one of those like one-time alliance usage things. But, maybe you want to use it today. Maybe you want to, win some prize money playing WoW, however little. This might be the day, this might be the time to use those one-time consumes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're the kind of player like me, but I'm a hoarder when it comes to those things. So I'm still holding on to. I've got a handful of my real sticky glues sitting in there for that choice PvP moment. Although, considering we're on the horde-dominated Stalag, there isn't a lot of world PvP to be had at this time.
Yeah, I might sticky glue someone trying to dispel me as I'm getting away,
Exactly.
but I think that's about it.
But yeah, there's all of that's one of the things that I think makes Classic really special is there's a lot of really niche items that people can use in some really unique ways. We saw Salad Bakers was actually using snowballs when they were running PTR and then Axe and testing out a few things to help get them into certain positioning and whatnot. So there's a lot of seasonal items and kind of unique things that if you're willing to kind of break the bank and try and test them out, they can employ some really interesting tactics with them. So who knows if we'll see more of those things today, or if people are going to kind of keep their gun holstered for a little bit.
Yeah, how much do people want to just go all out today? How much do they want to maybe save for a future competition? I don't know. I don't know how many people are thinking that far ahead. Is the money already transferring across the ocean? Well, we still have more runs to go. We still have Empire here coming up next. After Empire, we have Daddy's Boys. And then we still have, and then 3 more teams even following that. So we've got 5 more teams today. Fall with Green Parse Dungeon Co., Handjob Dictionary, and Nice all coming up. They've all just seen what happened there. The chances of any of them, I think, trying to pull off that mage pull without having practiced it, I think, are very slim. So it'll kind of come down to what they have practiced and what they are able to just do with the strategies that they've come up with.
Yeah, and as we noted that this past group was the first group to go off of the pathing that we've seen the other groups do. So it'll be interesting if there's any other distinctive pathing that anybody else tries to employ, if we go for different pylons in a slightly different order or anything like that to cut off a little bit of time, or if we'll see more people break off and just try to solo clear some more of those pylons. They did have the most interesting and the best strategy, I would say, so far, the last group. But they did pull a lot of extra packs. I think they pulled at least 2 of those air elementals. So even though it was the best run we've seen by far and very strong strategy, it was still not 100% clean. So if we have any of these other groups that are planning on employing a similar strategy and executes it just a little bit more efficiently, they could get edged out.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much room for any team to still make up ground here. That as much as we may look at that run and say, "Wow, that was insane," like they beat the other runs by 2 minutes. I think that there's lots of strategies that these groups have that could come out and surprise us. So, I am in contact with the next team with Empire right now. They are waiting on one more world buff, so as soon as they get that, they'll get their whole crew at the dungeon ready to go, and then they'll get started. So as soon as they message me and let them know, then we'll hop over into their run. So we do have a couple seconds still.
So Empire was the only team competing today that in the poll did not get a vote for their favorite team name. So I think they've got a little something to prove today. They may have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder after seeing that some people aren't as fun, and they want to prove that they truly are an Empire. So we'll see what they've got in store for us.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that no one on their team even voted for their name, but it's probably because they've been, I think like most teams, they've probably been spending the morning prepping for these runs, whether it's doing stuff in game on live servers or doing PTR runs just to stay ready to go and stay fresh.
They could just be a humble bunch and just be the kind of people that don't want to vote for themselves, so who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see. We'll get just a little bit of a sneak preview of their psyche as we see this run coming up here. I do know that FBI criminal profilers have used WoW speedruns as a part of their process for diagnosing people before. So we could see how get just a preview into the mind of the Empire momentarily.
Yeah, I mean, everything that I know about classic dungeon speedrunning does lead me to believe that there's something more to it than just WoW. Clearly, everyone who's participating today is an extraordinary human being in their own right. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Thank you everyone that's currently following and subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you guys. Again, you guys are the reason why we're able to keep doing this stuff. And you're providing us with the ability to do future competitions by supporting the channel like that. So they're getting their last few buffs. They're getting set up here. As soon as I get the call from them, we will swap over and get their stream up and running.
I'm pretty sure their stream right now is just a shot of Stormwind and a bunch of people yelling late. What's going on right now.
Yeah, that sounds like that sounds like every buff experience that I've ever been a part of, for sure.
Essentially, yes. That is the tradition of the great dropping of the heads.
All right, we are very close here. Just the last few buffs it looks like going out, so I'm gonna pull them up for now.
While we're getting that queued up, I'm going to go ahead and post our next poll. We're really interested here with TBC on the horizon. What dungeon are you guys most excited about? So I'm going to go ahead and post that. We'll talk through the results after the next couple teams get a chance to play. But please let her know your thoughts, which dungeon you're most hyped about coming into a TBC.
There's a chance that we don't actually hear any English from this run. These guys play on a French server in EU, so we may get a lot of. If anyone is familiar with speaking French, you guys might get some insight into what they're doing, into what they're planning, while the rest of us are going to be a little bit in the dark for this one.
And they do hail from, as I said, EU, but their server is Aberdeen, so repping the team. We'll get a hunter perspective. So the last several we've gotten have all been warriors. So getting a little bit of outside the bird's eye view. Already seen they've got some really interesting trinkets popping in a title charm. You don't see that too often. So I'm curious to see how they're going to utilize that in this upcoming run. And I can't quite see what the other icon was.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that other trinket is.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that, but
looks like they're pulling, and they've got a stopwatch set up.
Oof, you love to see it. That
the pyro pull. This hunter already going and trying something different here. You can tell he's not going to that middle pylon. He's veering off, going a different direction. Yeah, EU Hunter Strats is where we're at right now.
So he doesn't have his pet out, so just helping avoid those paths. But we'll see if he is trying to do some of those classic Dire Maul pulls and having set into the pet and doing the feign death, or what he's kind of working with right now.
Yeah, I
Looks
thought
like they're
maybe
heading down.
I thought he was going down, but now it looks like he's
cut.
cutting back, going up. Popping rocket boots here. He's got aspect of the monkey on. Frost reflector. That's what that other trinket was.
Oh yeah.
Feign
That's
death.
so they don't. Oh, so it's avoiding the slows from the frost bolts. Is what they're doing right now.
He's trying to get the jump onto these little pots. I'm
He's just
guessing if he
going
stays
too
up
fast.
here, he's just gonna they're gonna reset.
So this is the first team we've seen employ reset mechanics, which was pretty heavily used in the last competition. So I've not seen anybody try that out so far. It'll be interesting to see.
All right, so he's Eyes of the Beast seeing pet pulling. I think obviously going for that. The far pack, the far pylons mobs. He's actually having the pets. Oh, he was going to try to have the pet, I think, stealth by. Oh, but he's resetting. He's still got 32 seconds left on Eyes of the Beast here. He's probably just going to wait for those mobs to reset, and then he'll pull these voids. Man, EU coming out with the crazy strats today. We had all these North American players that we're just going to go and we're just going to smash it. And then we've got the Europeans coming in here saying, we're gonna make this more interesting. We're gonna try these different things.
It's a little bit more finesse, you know. We got
Yeah.
the Zug from the US so far, and now we've got the finesse side. So, and I think it's interesting to note that, you know, it's I think if I'm right, both of the alliance teams have been from EU, right? If I remember that correctly.
That does sound correct. Yeah.
So America loves their Zug smash, and EU loves their sleek night elves.
Yeah, here we go with the NA versus EU conversation, the smash versus the strategy. We're gonna see how it plays. Looks like these guys also accidentally pulling some of the air elementals, but their mobs. I mean, the mobs are on the way, right? They're coming.
So it looks like they did also get one of those elemental packs too, with one of those pulls. You get this up. Oh, managed to avoid that one too.
I also think unless the 4-man group without this hunter killed the right group first, there's a chance that they're going to have all these extra mobs show up faster than the last group did. And I wonder if that's actually going to play into like them having a faster run.
Well, it's clear they didn't try to slow down the mobs that they were bringing down versus the mage spent a lot more time kiting them. So they'll have their full team together much sooner, which gives them a little bit extra DPS and a boon, but I'm not sure when they'll end up meeting with those packs that they just pulled on. I think in theory it's going to come to your point a lot sooner than what the last group had.
Yeah, those mobs have to run, like you said about the last run, down 2 flights of stairs. I'm curious to see. Oh, here they come! Wow, this is almost perfect timing.
That's you love to see it.
We'll see what they're able to drop. It looks like maybe he dropped a target dummy there. This might have only been one of the pylons, also.
Yeah, it could have been the first one he pulled because it had a lot less distance. So,
this may be a better thing because if that second one shows up right around the time they finish, like what I just said. Oh, they did get some wind elementals here though. Mana is very low. Health is dropping low.
So this is when those mana burns start going out a little bit more, and you see the, as you can see, both the casters are starting to hurt a little bit, getting a little bit concerned. But the pally bubble is so strong, especially for these kinds of situations. So even though he's ran out with them, he was able to get a lot of free casting on.
They survived. That was insane. Basically no mana on anyone at this point. He did have enough mana to get aspect of the pack back on, which is very big, but they're at 5 minutes right now. I I feel like that. I mean, they're clearly behind, right? To be at this
Yeah.
point, and
They
only,
still have got
yeah.
another pylon to clear too, and Immol'thar. So I think those extra packs kind of bit them in the back.
Yeah,
hurt
those
them in
extra
the long
wind.
run.
Oh, they pulled more extra wind elementals here too.
And this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. This is the trickiest area. It's very easy if you get into a bad sequence to keep pulling these, and this is really dangerous because they're very low on mana already. Both
Yeah.
their healer and their mage are hurting, and they don't have the bubble to get those free casts off. But it looks like they'll still manage it through. Paladin mana is insane. All you got to do is those rank ones, and they just get a crit, and they're back in the game.
Yeah, I mean it's super rough. You can only imagine where they'd be if they hadn't pulled. I think they pulled 3 extra air elemental packs, and that's just. I mean, it's a ton of, like you said, a ton of mana, a ton of time.
As Al Pacino once said, life's a game of inches, and I think that's when it comes down to these speedrunning competitions. It's the tiny little things that bite you.
Absolutely. I mean, so they got this done. Ooh, they're dropping another target dummy, I think, just to get the ads off of them, so they can get aspect of the pack back on, get some extra movement speed in here.
So they could definitely hit the second place slot right now. They're still very competitive within that, and that's still in the money. So even though they have not beaten the last team, or last EU team, they are still in the money right now. If they continue to have a clean run, if something, I mean, at this point, something disastrous would have to happen for them.
Yeah. It'd be very, very hard to have something bad go wrong right here.
Fat finger and pull the entire library. I don't even know how. Like, I don't even know what you could do.
And let's see, 7, 18. So 7-18 again. That's still very, very good. It's still good enough for second place.
I mean, it's 32 seconds above the previous for a second place team. So that's a very nice buffer. It's a solid run. Clearly, I'm sure they're a little bit frustrated. They pulled some extra paths that they weren't expecting. Definitely added to a lot of their time. Made it that they probably couldn't smash quite as hard because they didn't have as much of a mana pool to, especially the mage and the hunter, to utilize their full rotations. But still a very clean run. It was really interesting to see the perspective from a hunter and see what the kind of pull they were going for. Our first time seeing resets utilized. That said, maybe the mage was utilizing resets. We haven't seen their perspective at this point from the last team.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, the hunter, I mean, having a hunter do that instead of a mage, like, it's going to be a way different experience. I'm sure that there's pros and cons to both. Obviously, I think the hunter mobs showed up faster, but the mage mobs were all stacked up. So it was much cleaner. And honestly, like, I think it really came down to how much extra stuff did Empire pull right there. Because I think, you know, maybe if they avoid all those extra pulls, they make it a lot closer. Because the whole thing with all these runs is we're talking about runs that are, you know, the slowest right now is 8 minutes and 18 seconds. Like, any percentage of time off of that is going to be huge.
Definitely. And as some people have kind of noted in the chat, they both of the last two teams employed the similar strategy of getting the top pylon packs down to the bottom by what Immol'thar was. But because the hunter doesn't have that Wink 1 Blizzard to keep them slowed and really get them nice and grouped together, they had to fight them separately. They were a little bit more spread out, so they couldn't get those fatty sappers that the last group was getting off. And I think that's another thing that kind of feeds into those couple more seconds. So I think the biggest thing that hurt their time, obviously, was those additional packs they pulled. But the difference between a mage pulling that and a hunter pulling it, I think the hunter endlessly pulled less additional ads, but they weren't grouped as tightly, which kind of makes the additional ads a little bit less negligible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super tough too, because I mean, I'll circle back and even say again, like, they didn't know what the dungeon was going to be. They didn't know what group comp they had, but they did have a mage in their group. I think it might have just been that they just figured the hunter was better to pull those two top pylon groups.
Yeah, I think they were a little bit more relying on the mage to help clear the other pylons and get that AoE off, which is why the mage was definitely, by the time they got to Immol'thar, the mage was pretty much for the majority of the rest of that run, because I think they had to carry him on some of the pylons a little bit more that we didn't see while the hunter was doing that pull.
Yep. So the next group, they are set up and ready. We do have a little bit of time here. So this is going to be Daddy's Boys. This is a horde group. I can confirm that now just by watching their stream and seeing them.
And they're another Fairbanks team. So this is the second Fairbanks team we've had this competition. So starting to get that little bit of that. Actually, we've got, there's at least three teams from Fairbanks. So Fairbanks has shown some great representation today. And I'll just do another quick poll, a plug for the poll. Remember, guys, we do have a poll going right now for what what TBC dungeon you are most excited for.
So it's heroic or normal. I think when we move into TBC with these dungeon speedruns, chances are we're going to focus on heroic. So if you want to look at the poll from that perspective, that's totally good. That works for us. But it could just be that you remember a specific dungeon fondly, whether it's normal or heroic. So go ahead and vote on that based on your favorite dungeon. But yeah, back to how, we've got, I think a lot of these teams are from either similar servers or they're from people that are kind of connected to the Discord, whether it's, there's a group from my server, from my guild that's participating in this competition. And I think just being connected to me is what got them into this. I think that as these different teams from different servers participate, it could be that, they go back to their server, they talk about it, with their guilds or with other people on their server. And hopefully that's going to lead to the community growing as a whole, just because of word of mouth, even because there's only so much advertising that we can do. This is very much going to be a community driven experience for everybody involved.
Definitely. So share the word, get some runs on there. There's a few leaderboards on the Discord that are still uncontested. So there's some opportunity to carve yourself in the Hall of Champions, as it were, very early on and set the bar.
Yeah, I think to this day there's still no UBRS submission. So
and we got another competition next month. So who knows? You could be getting those reps in for what may be the next month's competition.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometime later this month, my thought is that next weekend sometime I will release the dungeon and the competition for December. Right now I'm still trying to figure out the perfect date and time to host it in December. I know Nax is coming out. I want to avoid that. I want to avoid DMF week. I also know there's holidays. So I'm going to be doing my best to schedule that competition on a day and time that we can get the most teams, the most involvement from the community. But definitely be looking out for that. My goal is to, again, have there be cash prize for that. Whether it's the same or more, a lot of that kind of depends on how much support we get from the community. Because, again, you guys are the ones who make this happen. And it's just being here, supporting everything. Again, thank you all. I think that's a kind of a cliche thing that gets brought up with sports in general, is that the fans make the game, but in this case, it's very much so.
And I'm not going to speak for Duran, but I will say I think we are open to sponsors too. So if your guild wants to sponsor one of these, gets the shout out, get some, little advertising, plug your recruitment post, reach out. You never know. Duranosaur is always open to ideas, I believe.
Oh, absolutely. If you happen to work for any sort of company or brand and you want it to be the official, you want to be the official sponsor of Classic Dungeon Speed, I'm willing to sink to very low levels to continue to have these competitions happen. As long as the integrity of the competition stays there, I'll take any sort of sponsorship and support that I can get, if it means I get to keep doing these for you guys. So I think the next team is about ready to go here. I'm going to go ahead and pull them up.
So again, this is another U.S. Fairbanks team. So we're skipping back over to the Americas for this one. We've got an interesting combo again. We've got a rogue, warrior, priest, warlock, and mage. So going a little bit heavier on the caster side on this one again. First warlock we've seen since the Smooth Brain game, and then interestingly enough, we will have a warlock in all of the remaining teams on the competition, and druids will be making their first appearance a little bit later as well, too. So
Yeah, I'm excited to see the druids in particular, just because I think that one of the groups might have a resto druid, but I think we might see a feral druid in one of them as well.
yeah, and it's Pharaoh druids get a bad, or druids in general get a little bit of a bad rap in Classic, but they offer a ton of unique utility that you can't get with any of the other classes in the game. So it'll be interesting to see how teams try to employ that a little bit. It looks like this group has got our first warrior rocking sweeping strikes, arm spec, doing the two-hander. So I think they'll get a little bit more burst damage on some of these AoE packs, which is very heavy on these, but it'll be interesting to see how they're able to employ. They've already got their stopwatch out. Shouts out to the people with the stopwatch. We appreciate you.
We love the stopwatches. Thank you. Ooh, the top is a little cut off. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, it looks like he's just got, that's just how he has his stream set up currently, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that might be on his end, unfortunately.
We do see the rocket boots are already equipped, so they've got that pre-locked and loaded.
Yep. Shout out to for the classic bars and an almost full classic UI, by the way. I think that it's great. I'm a big fan of the classic UI. But here they go. They started the time a little bit early. But that's fine. We can always, it's easier to take time off. This is Method SCO's UI, apparently. Very nice.
Yeah, I wish I was cool enough to say I use just the default UI, but I'm an ELV UI guy. I know it's a little bit heavy on the load, but I do like all the utility and little functionality and ease of life things that it offers.
So it is interesting here. I mean, any horde group that's not running a shaman, I feel like it's an interesting choice. I think that part of it is just being able to find people that are willing and able to do these runs. You might not be able to find a shaman to do it, but in general, like I guess we haven't done enough of these to really understand if, you know, for these types of runs, is a shaman actually better or is a priest better because of, you know, prayer of healing and other things.
Well, it's interesting about how much uptime you really have with the Wind Fury and the choice of how much it costs for the mana and whatnot, and when drop totem, especially because this dungeon you're really popping through it. This group is electing. Some of the other groups did a little bit more tactful pulling on these, but they're just barreling right through and trying to brute force this.
Oh, the NA Zug is real.
Yes, it is. We're not going for the finesse on this run. This is a brute force. We are arm spec. We'll get through this, but he's slowed, so he popped that trinket, but because he's slowed, or maybe he's just torn, so it looks like he's in slow motion regardless. But
oh yeah, but yeah, they're cruising through here. Do very conventional strat here. I say conventional, but they're still moving at an insane pace compared to your average DM West run.
So the first pylon, they didn't pull all of them at once. They're going for a little bit more of a single target strat, which is surprising considering they've got a mage, they've got a warlock. So there they are pulling it, but you'll notice the EU and a couple of other groups were utilizing target dummies to really get these guys nicely grouped up so you don't have them running wild and missing out on your AoE, your sappers and whatnot because they're a little bit out of position. So this group's missing out a little bit on some of those micromanaging, which is kind of what can kind of make the difference on some of these runs, but still a strong run still so far.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of this too has to just do with, you know, we've got a lot of variety in the people that are competing today. I think that we've seen that some people are, you know, they're flasking, they're going all out, they're dropping target dummies, they're using, you know, goblin rocket boots and other movement speed, and then you've got, you know, maybe some people that are, you know, they're just excited to run dungeons and to try to push and see how well they do, and they're not quite min-maxing at the same level. I think both Both groups are amazing. I encourage everyone to come and try these out. But I think that as we get farther, as this community grows, you are going to see sort of those, like, the people that are willing to do those extra little things, kind of like the advantages that they bring are going to become larger and larger. That being said, like, I mean, this group, they're dropping holy waters. They're doing their own usage of interesting, like, extra little consumables and mechanics here.
Definitely. They've got all the engineering trinkets. They are bringing them out. They're just utilizing them in a little bit different capacity. So, now one thing that we saw in the leaderboard run, not one of these runs, is one of the groups accidentally pulled the bear that was past there. So we haven't seen that happen in one of these runs, but I am waiting to see for a group to actually bring in that additional boss, get that additional large brill.
Oh, yeah. And I assume, again, like, all these groups probably watched that run just to get a sense of, how do you do this in sub 8 minutes as a starting point, at least. And I'm guessing a lot of them looked at that and saw, like, okay, it's really easy to pull the night elf hunter and her bear pet. So probably best to try to pull that pylon back away from the potential boss patrol.
They've already used their goblin boots, and they've just put on the gnomish, which it looks like they just pop a speed pod right now,
I think he's got boots on.
I know he's got the boots on, but I thought he just drank a potion. I thought that was a speed pod. Just to the right of the holy water.
Oh, it might have been, yeah. Just doing everything they can. With this more conventional strategy of going to each pylon, you have to use all those movement speed consumes if you really want to compete.
Now this will be the big part where they can still be still be competitive if they don't pull these additional packs that put on at least 30 to 40 seconds, if not a minute, on some of those runs, I would argue, because of the additional packs they're pulling. So they're at 5 minutes, so they're not going to take the first team slot, and they're going to be hard pressed to even get second. But if they don't pull these additional packs, they could definitely hold down the third spot, maybe even pushing if they have a phenomenal couple next minute into the other team's time.
Yeah, we'll see if they're able to pop any more movement speed consumes here. It looks like they're popping.
They have the gnomish rocket boots equipped, which it looks like they're. Oh, he screwed up. He accidentally clicked his goblin rocket boots before he used the gnomish. So he re-equipped it, so he's back on a 30-second cooldown. So you see everybody's popping theirs, and he double clicked his by accident. Pop the door. So yeah, he's fallen a little bit behind them now, waiting those extra 30 seconds, but he's gonna pop it now and he'll catch up.
Yeah, I'm guessing. With charge and everything, hopefully the group just starts without him.
Yeah, that's some bad RNG too. That the rocket boots did not last very long. As we know, it can last. The timer of it is not consistent.
And we do have someone posted in chat the mage point of view from the Better Rewinds run, so we can potentially watch that and check it out. Either between some runs or maybe after we get done, depending on what we've got going on. But yeah, they've got, all these are killed, pylons, the wall's down.
So as we've seen with all the teams today, trinket management and management of these movement speeds, the micromanagement is a whole little game of in itself. We've had some teams that kept their stopwatch on for the better part of the entire run. We've seen some teams who have really swapped through a plethora of trinkets. We saw that last hunter was using ice reflector with tidal charm and a variety of things that I don't think there's a good chance most of the teams didn't even have those trinkets in their repertoire. So it looks like they're trying to drag them on this one a little bit, not quite as much as the last team, but they're on their way for the next run. Yeah. And it looks like he just popped another swiftness pot just now.
Yeah, popping those swiftness pots. If you don't have to pop any other potion, you can probably get two or three of them off pretty safely in each of these runs that we're seeing people do.
They did manage to avoid all those elementals, which is kind of the saving grace of their run right now. Does have his Earth Strike on cooldown though, so he will be down a on-use trinket for the last little push.
And coming up here, looks like 8:22 is going to be their
Ooh.
final time.
They just barely missed beating Smooth Brain Gang. Sometimes I can't talk.
So 8:22 is going to be their final time. We'll get that updated. It's tough because you've got these groups that probably practiced a much more conventional run, and after watching people that are trying out and succeeding with a lot of these more interesting pulls, it's really tough to like watch those even and then know like, okay, well, we're gonna go in, we're gonna do a more conventional route, and it's probably gonna end up being slower. It's just part of speedrunning. I think that we see that a lot in raid speedrunning. You'll see groups and raids try out these like much more interesting, much more difficult strategies, and if they succeed, then that sort of becomes the norm. And with these runs all happening like one after another, teams don't even have a chance to really implement or practice those strategies that look to be the better way to do things.
Yeah, and as we saw in the last contest, one of the big questions was, well, the teams that are going to go later are going to get an advantage because they're going to see the teams' runs before them. But as we can see, the teams that have really hit the times, those are going to be really difficult strategies to recreate, even with the mage's point of view currently being posted from our top run from the Better Rewind. You're going to be hard pressed as a mage to do that on the fly, especially with most of these teams coming up within the next hour or so. You're going to want to practice those ones because if you wipe, you're completely out of the competition. There's no doubt about it. And these kinds of pulls can and will wipe you if you don't pull them off correctly.
Yeah, and I mean, I would be amazed if any of the teams still yet to come decide to just scrap their strategy and try pulling those upper pylons one way or another, just because there's so much risk associated with it that you don't even really get to see what it's like, because they probably went in and practiced it a number of times to get to the point where they knew they could get it done safely. So I think that it's ultimately going to come down to how many of these teams practice strategies similar to that, and are they able to execute them as well or better? Because like we've said, even the Better Rewind, even Empire, they pulled extra packs. Like they didn't have perfect runs, and I think that's just a testament to like how fast you can really teams could potentially get this dungeon done. Like if you think about the Better Rewind, like they might have been able to get sub 530, maybe even faster if they hadn't accidentally pulled a couple extra mobs.
Definitely. I think that's what it makes exciting, is this is it's that doing it live. You never know what's going to kind of happen, and there's that stress too of even if you've practiced it a little bit and these teams have had a week to try things out, run some different strats, and as well as just get comfortable with the flow of the dungeon. But that said, as we said, depending on when they zone in, when they start the run, padding can be a little bit different. Sometimes they can aggro things a little bit that they didn't expect, especially with those invisible mobs. It can kind of play a little bit more of a wild card.
Yeah. As we saw with the first run with Buzzman and the Sunderberries, those invisible mobs can throw a big wrench into whatever you're doing. It's just one of those X factors that comes with the territory with DM West.
Especially if you're trying to drop combat to swap trinkets or something to that effect. That can play a lot into it.
Oh yeah, or boots or whatever else. Yeah,
definitely. Well, it'll be interesting. We've only got 2 teams left that have mages or hunters in them. So there's only 2 teams left that could even attempt to try to do those pulls or potentially try something even different. We don't know. There could be some other scrappy ideas we've got in store for us today.
Yeah. So this next team that we have coming up, this is Green Parse Dungeon Co. This is a horde team. It's from Stalag, which is my home server. It's Shrek's home server. So we know these guys. We're familiar with them. I'm hoping that they come in here and do something exciting. They are electing to do a priest healer instead of a shaman, even though they're horde. Zidane let us know earlier in chat the big reason was because they wanted to do some interesting stuff with Mind Soothe, depending on the dungeon. Unfortunately, with Dire Maul West, there isn't a lot of opportunity for that. But I'm still excited to see what they're wanting to do, what they'll be able to come in here and test out. I know that they have practiced, even on the PTR. I think they've done some practice runs.
And it makes sense too, because they don't have they only have one melee in here. So while the totems are definitely a boon to everybody in the team, it's really the Wind Fury is what's going to be the most significant difference from a DPS perspective, I think, for a lot of runs. So I don't think they're going to be missing quite too much, although beat up will be hurting a little bit. Every warrior loves their Wind Fury, but I don't think it will hurt them too much in the long run not having that shaman. I do think the Mind Soothe is a really interesting mechanic, especially if we were to do a run like Blackrock Depths or something like that. There's a ton of areas you can entirely skip with the Mind Soothe. So having a priest in that utility is a really interesting concept that these other teams would not have if we had done a little bit of a different dungeon. As we said, it's not been a factor today, although we did see the team that currently run did do some mind visioning to just get a sense on padding it, I believe. So
Yeah.
that could also be reemployed a little bit, especially if teams are in the dungeon for a little bit and just want to make sure that they've got right positioning set up.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Actually, I can double check. I don't need to like speculate. I think these last 3 teams are all NA. So I think we'll get to see if the NA trend of just, going for the Zug instead of the smart play is going to carry true here. If it's going to be that, the US teams, maybe they are faster at killing stuff, at just like barreling through, but it seems like the EU teams just approach this from a much more cerebral level. And that might end up getting both our 2 EU teams number 1 and number 2 spots.
They're all Horde too. It's interesting. All the US teams are Horde and all the EU teams are Alliance.
That's very interesting.
So it's funny how that kind of worked out. And when you look at the speedrunning guilds that are taking top AQ slots and stuff, it is fairly EU dominated between you got Salad Bakers and Progress sitting there, at Firemon and whatnot. So and they're all Alliance guilds. It's traditionally Alliance dominates the speedrunning competition. Those Paladin buffs are amazing. Having a Fear Ward is amazing. So it's interesting, the split that we've got. The Horde does offer a lot of versatility. You got guilds like Onslaught who are trying to push the envelope and keep Horde teams competitive in those speedrunning competitions. But when you get into these 5-man competitions, it's a little different ballgame. I'd say it's not as decisive having the Horde versus Alliance split, but we'll see how this plays out in the last couple Horde rounds, and if they have any other kind of tactics they're planning on employing, or if there's any other things that they can take advantage of that the Alliance teams can't.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also, I think it might be worth noting that we haven't necessarily had any of these teams show up from those top guilds, as far as I know. So I think our community, what we're doing here, it's still flying a little bit under the radar. But hopefully, as we move forward, we might get some more interest from, the Progresses, the Salad Bakers, the Onslaughts of the world. Just because I still, while I do love this community, I love just running dungeons in general, I do want to see, the best of the best come out here and try their hardest and see what they can come up with. And I think that even from today, we've seen there's a huge variety in the teams that are interested in doing this, and I want to see how far we can push it. That's one of the things I'm most excited about.
And I think that's what a lot of people at this point in Classic, a lot of people either they came back because they wanted some nostalgia, or they've come back because they've played private servers, they've done their 3 or 4 freshes already, and they're really looking to push the envelope and just kind of check the last things off of their bucket list here, or try a different class or whatever. So I think this is an amazing time, especially with how geared everybody really is. They've had so much more time to farm than the majority of any private server or any vanilla group ever had. So
Okay.
having that
Log in.
opportunity, seeing what you guys can do with the gear and the
chat.
tools and the knowledge you have now,
This is
really,
uncle.
people say Classic is solved, but not all of it has been. So I'd love to see solve some dungeons.
Oh yeah, I think dungeons are one of those areas that we've just started scratching the surface. So this is
I promoted you, Uncle.
Dungeon. What is this? What is their team name?
Mark yourself.
Classic
And Riba.
Green Dungeon Co.
Let's wait for
Green
Snap.
Parse
Green Parse
Dungeon Co. It's one of our longer team names here.
Before this team gets started, again, I'm just going to do another plug for, we got that poll running. We'll probably get the results out shortly after this run, I imagine. But please go in, get your voice in. We do look at this feedback and consider it for when we think about these competitions in the future. So let us know what you're interested, what dungeons you're really excited for in TBC. I'd love to hear from you.
All right, these guys are ready.
No healer. Nice.
Giving everyone except for Vita and Biz.
Trying to remind them to get their stopwatch up.
Tyrannosaur told me to make sure that you have your timer.
So I'm a carry pointed out asking about the Soulstone. Every group that has had a Warlock has done a Soulstone. It's kind of a why not? If you're bringing a Warlock and they've got that tool, you never want to use it. You never want to have it, but you'd rather have it and not need it than not have it and need it.
We have a bad pat right now.
It's also one of those things where if you have a Warlock in your party, that Warlock can soulstone everyone in the party. It takes some time, but they are able to do that. So there's a good chance that every single person in their group has a soulstone, just in case something goes wrong and they lose them. They're able to pop back up and just keep going.
It's one of the things that I also think is interesting about the potential of a druid as well, because
you ready?
druids do have that battle res. So basically, if you die in these runs, it's probably it's a scrap. But if you have a soulstone or battle res, because you're not going to get a traditional res out in time, it does give you a little bit of opportunity to try to salvage a run at least and keep it competitive. But they're already sappering right off the bat, just blasting, trying to utilize those cooldowns as best as possible. Looks like they're going to be doing a little bit more of a traditional route, though, from what we're seeing right now.
Yes, it does. He forgot to start the timer. It's okay. I noted the time. Just used to that at this point.
We did get a stopwatch out at least, though. So
yes,
that's,
it's on the screen.
Progress.
Okay, move back, Riba. You're going to get.
I can't move.
Okay.
You just get. What is going on?
So this is, we're back to the last warrior was in arms, and we're back onto a fury warrior for this one, which seems to be the predominant spec that people are running for. Part of that could just be as simple as we don't want to pay for respec costs. The other part could be a very, they felt that this was the best since there's a even though there's those pylons or more AoE, they could have said it's more important to help burst down those bosses. They got some bad padding on that, though, so they did have to reroute a little bit, which cost them a couple seconds, but hopefully it won't hurt their run too much in the long run here.
Yeah, and as people are kind of saying in chat, they're moving pretty quick to have 0 seconds so far on their clock, which I must agree. That is a big deal.
So they're having the hunter doing a pull here out there. It looks like they're they're having the hunter pull it out so they could go sneak past all these mobs, but it does look like one of them may have aggroed on them. So let's see if they can. They're going to try to go for that reset, or they're going to hope that the hunter drops combat.
Yeah,
it did work.
They did have an Invis pat, but they were still able to skip that pack down there. If they do enough of that, even with the more conventional run, they should be able to get a very solid time.
And that's exactly what we've had a few hunters in here, but we haven't had hunters employ that skip pack ability that they have as much. This is the first team we've seen really utilize that stuff thus far. So it will be interesting to see if they continue to leverage that.
Again, kind of like the last horde group that went, they're not rushing in and pulling every single one of these mobs right off the bat. They are kind of getting a couple of them engaged at a time. Now they've got all of them pulled up here, it looks like they're popping some extra consumes.
Okay, start moving
Extra
towards
AoE.
the ledge.
And their sappers are just about to
Boots
come
on.
back up. They've got another 25 seconds, which means they should be good to go
Whatever.
for that second pack. I'm assuming they're planning on sappering
Well,
for
way
that
up
pack, which is why they
above it.
popped the first
Watch
round
the
of sappers
ghost.
particularly soon.
Just pull them
It's a
back.
5-minute
Yeah.
cooldown, so we assume they're roughly about at a 5-minute mark as soon as this comes up, since they did pop it right off the bat. Just to give us some tentative timing.
Holy water if you can.
Looks like they're popping holy waters here, similar to the last group.
Okay, go, go, go.
Which does
Oh,
share a
super clean.
cooldown with sappers, but it doesn't put the sappers on the 5-minute cooldown. So that is a smart play, trying to clear up that group. They do have quite a bit of AoE between the mage and the warlock, so that's a little bit of an interesting choice to focus on that group with them.
Someone just got a buff.
Ren sniped.
I'm gonna head towards the door now.
They've got there's still one up behind them, it seems like.
Clean up when you clean up. 2 seconds. Got it.
Alright, they got it. It looks like
Make sure you have your boots equipped.
again, like I think these groups just know how close they can get. Look at how close they're getting to this boss, and they're just fine. They're just running right by it.
I'm opening the door.
I feel like this is one of those things someone will go to a pug dungeon DM
Pop
West
boots?
later and they'll
Yep,
say
go,
like,
go, go.
well, I know that I can just like walk right next to him and it's
Pull
not
them
going
all
to aggro,
together.
and it's inevitably going to end up in a bad situation.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those moments where I saw it on Twitch, and then they don't execute it correctly and wipe a group, and that DM West run
Yeah,
is
those-
over.
Oh, whatever.
I got more ghosts here.
Okay, I got the cleanup. You guys head
So
to
that
the
they're
next location.
choosing a sapper there, at
On
least
your left.
one. It looked, or that may have been a blast wave actually.
Yeah, it might have been Blast Wave. I think right now they are almost at 5 minutes.
Yeah, so they didn't use. It's interesting. It doesn't look like they actually used the Goblin Rocket Boots,
Seems like we're all cleared.
even though there is. And I'm not entirely sure what is that buff that they have
Touch that
next
one,
to their
yeah.
flask that looks like the Ignite proc. I'm not entirely familiar with what that is off the top of my head.
I guess, do they have a Zanza flask? Or
They don't. Is that the Spell Reflect Zanza one?
No, I was wondering if that's Blasted Lands, because I think that's what the Blasted Lands Spirit looks like, but I don't know why you would choose Spirit here.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Oh, someone's saying Oil of Immolation, maybe?
Oh, that makes sense. So that mobs take damage when they get that. That's a smart play for the.
Watch out the ghost. It's gonna.
We're all learning here,
And
guys.
you just he breathed fire, so you know.
Okay, we should be good with.
Yeah,
the
it looks
treants
like it's only got
also.
about 2 minutes left on
Yeah.
that, but
No, go into the doorway or stay where you guys are. Okay.
Go ahead.
We're still moving here. Still haven't popped
Gonna go open the door.
boots.
well, he actually unequipped them. So he had them equipped, and then he didn't look like he ended up using them. He swapped them back to his chromatic
hurry,
boots.
goodbye.
So, but it looks like he's going to his diamond flask.
You want PI?
Yes.
Now we can't really tell what gear the priest is rocking for this one because they're using the savory deviant, but they do have that regalia staff. It looks like, so they've got some nice MP5 going on there, but I can't quite tell what other gear set they're rocking for this.
Yeah, we don't know.
Interesting thing is it looks like
Is this not
we don't know if they've got that tier 2.
Yeah,
But it looks like we do have. Is that a Imperium Demolisher? It looks like.
I
on
believe
beat-up?
it is. Yes.
Go to the boss.
It's a fun weapon. You don't always
here.
see these world boss weapons being utilized, especially on Horde for a mace. But because he's a troll, it's got the benefit of not needing to be axes only. Yeah, Dragon's Breath Chili does make sense. The one that does
Yeah.
periodically breathe. I did see that happen at one of the earlier pylons. I forgot what the
He's
icon for
dropping
that
low.
looked like.
Okay, looks like he'll be okay here. They are
So I'm
again.
getting hit by shit, resisting.
It's interesting, he hasn't used the diamond flask quite yet, so it looks like he's going to use it for the last boss to blast through them.
Ripper
did
behind.
use a ZHC trinket though, which is I think that's a
Alright,
ZHC
clear it as we
trinket.
go. Keep moving.
Could
Just
be wrong.
run past it.
No, sorry,
Watch
that's not.
the to our
That's
right.
totally off.
Yeah, just basically ignore it. It'll catch up to us later. And
So they are at about, I want to say 8 minutes right now,
Alright,
or they're coming up on 8 minutes.
Yeah,
They're about
PJ, let's go ahead.
7:50 as
Yeah,
they
I'm
jump down here.
Shield you on the
Just
way
popping the
down.
diamond flasks. You know, going for the blast. They did have some
Yeah.
ads that they picked up on the way, but they've just slowed those and kited those while they come in
Yeah.
and blast the boss.
I think that's probably the way to do it.
Absolutely.
There's the
Fine.
kill.
Easy.
And we have no idea. I didn't even start my timer.
Ads are gonna come.
Yeah.
All right,
If you
so
care
they
about
didn't
Well,
they didn't
no,
start their
it's
timer.
assumed.
So we will have to go and double check that. I think they're right around 8 minutes, so we can tentatively put them at about 8 minutes. For now, again, that's not enough to put them in like contention for 1 or 2.
Yeah, depending on their timing though, they could be in that third slot, but I don't think they beat out Buzzbin in the Sunderbear's time. They didn't have as many pets that they pulled though, particularly in the Vortex room. So that was really solid.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a very clean run. I think their main issue is just that they're not. I mean, any group that goes now, like they have to kind of pull something out in order to keep up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't think they had their rocket boots equipped, but I don't think they ever used them. At least the beat up did not. So those are one of those small things that when we look at it and they're approximately at 8 minutes that could have edged them into Buzzbin and Sunderberry's time. That and the little things like they got that pat that they got caught in, which added an extra. I mean, it's only 3-4 seconds, but those couple things could have been the difference between them and taking third spot in that run.
Yeah, I think like it's all the little things right now that are going to keep adding up to someone really like gaining any sort of momentum on the leaderboard. Because even right now, if you look at it, I mean, between that like 6th place to 5th to 4th to 3rd, even like we're talking about, you know, seconds are separating these teams. And so having those rocket boots up, having different movement things like that's going to make a ton of difference. But we do have, so this is our current standings. Again, the Better Rewind is number 1. That's one of our EU Alliance teams. Empire, number 2. That's our other EU Alliance team. And then we've got the Horde NA teams filling out the rest of the bracket right now. So we can go back here and take a look. We still have 2 more teams to run. Handjob Dictionary is going to be coming up next. It looks like they are pretty set and ready. We've got about 7 minutes until their run starts. And then to close it out today, we're going to have team number 9, Nice. And they will be finishing our day. Both of these are Horde. Both of these are NA. And yeah, it's just going to be, I think a lot of these teams probably practice that more conventional run. But maybe they'll try something out of the box. Maybe they will be able to zug even harder than our EU players were able to think hard. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, will brute force triumph? We will see. I know in tonight's episode of Dragon Ball Z, but we did. I did post that poll again. We will do the results right before the next team goes. So please get those. Get your votes in, guys. Let us know what your TBC dungeon you guys want to see. Who knows? It could be the first TBC dungeon that we do a speedrunning competition for. You never know. Let the people's voice be heard.
Let the people know. But yeah, so this next group actually is going to have our first druid as well. It's hard to know whether it will be a resto druid or not. I'm thinking it might be. And it might be that shaman is either enhanced or elemental. But we'll have to kind of wait and see. It's going to be warrior, rogue, druid, warlock, shaman. So
we're going back to Fairbanks for this team. So,
back to Fairbanks.
From what I had the analytics team from ESPN's Next Gen Analytics. They took a quick look at the logs, and from what I can tell, it looks like the shaman is enhanced, but does have some parses as a resto. But I'm assuming they're probably going to be running as enhanced, so it looks like we'll have a resto druid this run. So as you know, the tough thing when you have these runs with all these world buffs, especially with the warriors and whatnot, they're always pushing buff cap. It gets a little bit scary with how many hots you can put up, and that really kind of limits some of the healing that the druids can do, and some of their other cast times can be a little bit longer with those 3-second casts. So it will be interesting, but in combination with a good Diamond Flask set and a bunch of hots, a warrior can solo one of these packs very confidently, I would say. So it does open up a little bit more variability to have your team throw some hots and have them run over and do some maneuvers. So we'll see if they do anything a little bit crafty, a little bit different than what these other teams have done.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could make a case that this might be, as far as Zug teams go, having Enhancement Shaman, 2 melee DPS, and then the Druid Warlock combo, like, they're going to be able to keep throwing hots up on that Warlock. It should be able to keep life tapping and just going nuts. So this might be the team that does the most damage. Whether or not that's going to carry them to a top 1 or top 2 spot, like, I don't know. We'll again, we're going to be able to watch and see. I think that their strategy is probably based very much in the like, just run and barrel in and kill everything as fast as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think between the Innervate and getting some of those Mana Tides up there, or not Mana Tides, sorry, Mana Springs, they won't really have to worry about any downtime. Warlock will be able to keep chewing through those life taps, so they may be able to pull the fastest, potentially, of all those teams. That said, they are missing the Hunter and the Mage, so they won't be able to quite have as much range to try to grab things or try to sneak past them like we just had in the last group, where they were able to skip one of those packs. But they can make up for that with some of the DPS they could potentially put out on those pylon packs, which is, from what I've kind of been able to tell, the biggest handicap is just those pylon packs and how you handle those, how quickly you can get those killed, and your pathing for those.
Yeah, absolutely. I am going to quickly go on a break. I'm going to leave Shrek here, though. And as I go on this, I'm going to ask you, Shrek, as someone who has participated in a previous competition, and someone who might participate in future competitions, I just would want you to kind of talk about, how much, what you thought of the competition. Would you participate in more? Any little sort of tidbits and thoughts you have for anyone out there that's thinking like, oh, I might want to do one of these in the future. What kind of like time and effort does it take? Those types of things.
Yeah, definitely. So I was in the last competition, representing with my guild. Actually had 2 teams going in there, and we were hoping to at least field 1, if not 2 teams for this particular competition. Unfortunately, timing did not work out, so we had a couple people who are our usual go-to people who are always hungry to do these competitions, weren't able to participate this one, so we didn't get anybody in. But I know I'm eager to get another team going, get a more regular one, get some more representation for both Stalag, my guild, and elsewhere. It's really interesting. I've had a lot of people reach out to me since I've started engaging in this community, asking, some people are a little apprehensive of how can they get involved, how can they start learning, other people who are interested in these things. And I've always found that I get really frustrated waiting for people to do the things I want to do, and get just sick and tired of not having the options of the things of what dungeons I want to run, how I want to run them. So I find that the most important thing you can do, even if it's tough sometimes, is just start forming a group. That we don't have those dungeon finders, helpers, like you do in modern classic, modern WoW, but forming a group is very empowering, and it's amazing the people you end up linking up with, and the like-minded individuals you can find who may never be in your guild, may not be someone you typically run with, but they may be really into running 5-man dungeons, even if they're not as interested in 40-mans, or if they're more PvP centric, but they really like BRD or something like that, because they're a sadomasochist or something to that effect. But anyway, my point being is that I think the most important thing, if you're interested in getting involved with these things, is just forming a group, putting your name out there. You may not even get a ton of responses right off the bat, but just keep trying. Just absolutely keep trying. Eventually, you're going to find some people, like-minded people, tend to congregate together. My first team when we submitted for this, and I did a couple of leaderboard runs with Tyrannosaur. It wasn't about team comp. It was just, hey, who's available, and let's just get a run going. That's the most important thing, is just getting it started. So I encourage everybody just to try, and then from there you can refine and get really advanced, and you'll find more people who have the characters you need to do that comp you're looking for. But just all about starting.
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to catch the tail end of that, and yeah, again, I cannot agree more. Our second to last team here, they're ready. They have the stopwatch out. Let's just see if they remember to use it. Get one step further than the last team with that one.
This is our first healer perspective that we've gotten today, so a little bit of a different lens than what we're seeing traditionally. So it will be interesting to see what kind of insights we're able to glean from this run that we haven't from the previous ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
He did start the stopwatch. So we not only do we have a stopwatch, but they did start it.
Oh man, this is like the dream run already. But yeah, it will be. I mean, this is just way more interesting because we get an idea of like what a healer has to deal with going through one of these, with mana and even with like consumables and things.
Again, the warrior is very buffed up right now, so they're going to have to watch their hots and be very mindful on them. They won't be getting some of those other procs that they're getting, but because they do have a shaman in their group, they're going to be having and because it's enhanced, we may see a little bit more totem twisting that we've seen in these prior groups that had a shaman.
Yeah, they did get some, I guess, poor RNG there with the patrols. It seems like it did slow them down a little bit there. Just now getting to and clearing this first pylon.
Yeah, that's really tough. Hopefully they don't get caught on the back end like that last group did with that one tree. But
yeah.
That definitely just hurt their time a little bit there.
So first pylon down, right around 1 minute 20 seconds in. I don't see any movement speed just yet. The druid obviously gets, they get cat sprint and different things. They can also stealth around to try to help get past some of these patrols. But it looks like, again, a more conventional run. That warlock tapping down already. Thank you for the posture check, by the way. Trying to save my body as we do these.
Drew does have a flask of distilled wisdom popped right now, so they are at half mana, but that pool is still huge. I mean, they've got almost a 10k mana pool that they're working on, so even half mana is still sitting at 5k. That's nothing to slouch against.
And man, I just out of nowhere, I was kind of thinking about doing dungeon runs with more Nax level gear. Just sort of like thinking about mana and stuff. That like, what is it, the 2 set bonus for druids, where you have a chance on each like regrowth tick as to like either regain mana or energy or rage. Like I'm really excited to see how that really like vanilla in-game gear comes in and affects like even dungeon speed running and stuff, because I can't imagine like going through these runs and just like as a druid healer, if you keep that like a regrowth up on everyone and they're able to just like continue like regen both like health and mana or energy or rage, like that's going to play a big part.
Yeah, I mean, all the set bonuses introduce some really interesting gameplay, because I mean, you got the rogue, I think it's the 2-piece basically is equivalent to the 8-piece of their blood fang, and it heals them. So there's like auto built-in heals for some of the rogues, and warrior set bonuses not so much, but the shamans are interesting because you also get that totemic power, which can be a huge boost of damage.
Yeah.
So it really does open up the variability, and then you've got some really unique and interesting trinkets, both between the resist trinkets, some of those healing trinkets, and then of course, you've got, everybody loves their Kiss of the Spider and their Slayer's Crest and whatnot, but there's some of those trash drops, like there's that shield that slows the mobs, has a chance to slow. could do some interesting things with a shaman or a paladin potentially with that.
Yeah, there's like it's gonna be super fun to see how this grows and changes with just with next gear coming out. I think the same kind of goes for raid speedrunning, but I think at this point I'm a bigger fan of what we're doing here than raid speedrunning, just because I'm a little biased, I guess. The druid
Do
is
have some people getting a bit low.
Yeah, the druid is here. There's just so much mana burn that comes out from those guys that if you're
As someone
too
in the
close,
chat pointed out, Zidane pointed out, it is a 10-yard radius, so they've been standing a little bit too close and eating a lot more of those mana burns than were necessary. The druid did pop their innervate already, so it's on cooldown for the next 4 minutes. So I think again, when you get into these really the higher end of both raid and dungeon running, positioning is a massive point of importance, focus point for both your melee attack uptimes, reducing incoming damage, as well as putting yourself in a position to reduce the amount of time that you have to be running to your next spot. So you see the groups that are, the group that is currently taking the slot was dragging Immol'thar before when he was at like half health. So there's a lot of little things micromanaging position you can do that is going to shave off a significant amount of your time and improve your overall damage.
Yeah, I think that it kind of comes down to when you're kind of equating like raid speedrunning with dungeon speedrunning. Dungeon speedrunning is a lot closer to like MC or AQ40, where it's the time you spend in between killing stuff that is where you make or break your run, and it's how efficient you are with that and how efficient you kill stuff when you need to, and like hopefully stack it up as you go. I think the druid right now is thinking about flask potting.
Okay, I'm drinking now.
I don't know if those are GMPPs or flasks, but it's tempting. That's got to be tempting.
I think those are.
He's doing well. He's set for a while.
I think those are GNPPs because of the 2-minute CD.
Yeah.
Because there's one a little bit further up that I think is a second flask in case they need it.
Yeah, that makes sense because that one's on there. Now, hopefully, it doesn't look like he's going to pull that pack, but they're being mindful and watching their surroundings. This is, again, the area where you can pull a lot of unnecessary things.
Yeah.
And the warrior's trying to drag this stuff, but he's bringing them too close. Heck, I don't think those were the mana drain guys, but if those were the mana drain guys, you would really be killing your druid here.
Yeah, the druid's mana is basically back up at this point, over 7k. I think they're also doing a really good job of drink walking whenever possible.
Yeah, they did get a good drink off when they were opening the door, which I think was big for them.
Yeah, and it might just be that we're watching this from a healer perspective, but it kind of seems like this is the only run where mana has been a big issue. And it's interesting too because they have two classes that can potentially heal with that enhancement shaman being able to off heal as needed, and even then I think that mana has been kind of an issue.
Well, shamans are not a mana efficient class. They're arguably, or not even arguably, they're probably the least mana efficient class in Classic, but you add that with it being an enhanced. Oh, they got another pack now, so this is gonna get a little bit more dicey.
They did get a banish out on the large air elemental, which is going to be big and helpful. They did lose someone there though. I think that was the warlock went down. This druid's trying to keep everyone else up.
And this is the area we were talking about that if any team's gonna wipe, it's gonna be here. Like this is the one risky area because you can even potentially get a second pat, but it looks like they've got it under control.
And they got that druid battle res out too.
Exactly. That was the utility we're talking about, that warlock's back in the fight. Doesn't have his buffs, etc., but it's a lot better than running the rest of this as a 4-man team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the patrols in here, I mean, you talk about the air elementals. As soon as I think the wall comes down for Immol'thar, all of the void walker, the arcane void walkers, they start like moving a lot faster. So it's not just the air elementals, it's also those like random voids.
Most of our teams have pulled when they've killed Immol'thar, one of the void walkers and ended up dragging him with them. So the advantage is you can drag those, but it's more often than not one of the team has had a Voidwalker pulled with them to the Prince.
Yeah, and it looks like here the Druid healer's taken off, maybe to open the door early. I don't know if they had anyone run and open it. It looks like
I fucked up already.
Guys,
no.
10 minutes. It's fine. That's impressive with 2 people not having world buffs.
They're at 9 minutes 20 seconds right now.
Got it.
Still a phenomenal showing. I mean, running any dungeon in like 10 minutes is impressive. For anyone out there that's thinking like, oh wow, these guys are way far behind, like I would encourage you all to go out and try to do this and just see how it goes, because it's, I mean, these guys even showed like things can happen. You can pull extra mobs. You can do everything correctly, even up into a point, and like it still might not go as well as you think it's going to.
Well, this is also our least traditional group that we've had run into, that we've had run so far. So
yeah,
the Druid is, again, it's the first Druid we've had. It's the first Enhanced Shaman that we've had too, which is not what you've kind of seen. And then we also, the Warlock, even though most groups have actually had Warlock, and maybe one of the most utilized classes today, it's still not one of the more traditional speedrunning groups. You typically see a mage in that kind of slot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a ton of fun to come out and try with these like different comps. I think that in some cases you see stuff that you didn't know was going to be really good, and maybe it is. And then, you know, it might be that you think that a certain comp is going to do really well because of XYZ, and then, you know, it shows that there's potential holes in it as well. So you kind of get both things from trying out these different compositions. I think that it's good to see these runs and to see, especially like us, limit the amount of class stacking, because it allows you to, like, as an onlooker, to see what's good and what's bad, and maybe as you approach one of these dungeons in a pug or something, you have a better understanding of what classes can do better, or where the shortcomings are. And so then you end up having an easier time in the dungeon, not just because of, you know, what classes you have, but understanding the classes you have and what they're capable of.
So it sounds like two of their members ran into some trouble getting into the dungeon.
Yeah.
And didn't make it in with buffs. Coinstar and Jen, it sounds like you guys are from that team. Where who were the guys missing buffs? I think the Druid had them. Seemed like the Warlock had them. So I think it may have been your Warrior Rogue, or it was the Lock and the Rogue. Yeah, that's tough. That's a lot of lost out DPS. So still a great run, sub 10. Definitely strong showing, despite some adversity leading into the dungeon.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go out and say, like you were saying, Shrek, you and I did a DM West speed run, and I think we were like 13 minutes or something. So, like, anyone that's coming in here today and beating our time, like, I have like the utmost respect for. Like, my hat's off to you guys for coming in and doing these runs, no matter where you kind of end up on the leaderboard. Like, you're putting yourselves out there, but two, like, it's anything under 10 minutes is insanely fast.
Yeah, and you're already performing better than the two people broadcasting right now.
Yeah,
so you already beat us. So
I'm just here to talk about it, you know. All right. So we do have one more team today. Team 9 Nice. Their streamer is up and running. We've got about 7 minutes before their run will start. So they're going to close us out today. They're going to be our last run for the day. Once they are done, I'm going to see if I can get the team captain and maybe some other people from our winning team to come and do an interview. It might be Nice. It might be another team. So I'm just going to work on trying to set that up so that we have an idea moving forward.
I do have the results from our most recent poll. If anybody, feel free to get in your last minute submissions, but we are sitting at a 3-way tie right now between Hellfire Ramparts, Slave Pens, and Shattered Halls is what dungeons people are most excited for. So if you guys have any other last minute votes, get them out there. But the results so far are in, and it looks like we've got a 3-way tie between those classics. That I think everybody's going to have a lot of fun running those heroic Shattered Hull runs to get their attunements. I know I've heard plenty of people are really thrilled about that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of depending on what patch I guess we're getting. Like some people might have to run. I mean, because I think they change it later on, right? Where you only need honored for the heroic keys. But at the very beginning of TBC, I think you needed revered for a lot of them. So no matter what, I think people are going to have to run a lot of dungeons in TBC. Hopefully that leads to some, people recording them and submitting them, and we can get some TBC leaderboard going kind of right off the bat and see how it evolves and changes over the course of like all of TBC.
And I don't know, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people like me who were filthy melee cleave dungeon runners who leveled a 1 to 60 basically their whole way through dungeons when Classic originally released, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people just clearing Hellfire Ramparts for their first couple levels at least. So it'll happen organically whether or not we intend for that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole strategy for like not even doing Hellfire questing and just going straight into Ramparts, right? And going and just grinding those dungeons so that you can save all the quests for the rep and stuff. All these little things that I think, I think dungeons just play a bigger role in TBC, and I'm really excited about it.
Hashtag gotta go fast.
Always gotta go fast. So the next team, like I said, they are up and ready. It sounds like we will probably be able to do a winner's interview after their run, whether it's them, Team 9 Nice, or it ends up being our current top team, which is the Better Rewind. So don't just run away as soon as we're done with this last group of people. Stick around. We'll be able to talk to the winning team, see if we can get some insights from them, and then we'll kind of tease a little bit more, I guess, what we've got coming up for this community. But yeah, until then, we've got this one last run to go. Still about 3 minutes here. I don't know if we had another poll that we wanted to try to get out there.
Yeah, we can get one of the other polls. I will say, so just to keep in mind, the time to beat is 550, but you are still in the money if you get any time below 718. So there's still money to be had, even if you're not beating the number 1 slot. So 550 is the time to beat, but 718 is the time to still get some Skrilla. But we'll be getting this next poll I'll be posting out. So this what we're kind of curious to hear about is what's the next dungeon you guys would like to see run in one of these competitions. We've got one coming up next month, and we'd love to hear what you guys are thinking about for it. So we've got this poll, posting it up right now, and we'll be closing out the program with that. So get your voice heard now.
Yeah, I think we already have a bunch of ideas. There've been a ton of people from the community that have been sending us ideas. And I just have this long list of dungeons and restrictions and rules and things that can happen. So while I do already kind of have some ideas for the next couple, if you guys want to speak out on that poll and maybe show that there's one thing that you're most excited about, we can always change and adjust. I think that it's going to be the most fun if it's something that the community wants to do. So someone asking in chat, they're saying they're excited for next month. How do you donate for next month prize pool? So the way you would do that is honestly just by supporting the stream. So if you're watching right now, following the stream, view any viewership we get right now, if anything that gets donated, like bits or money or subs to the stream, all of that, I'm trying to push back into those next competitions. Right now, I'm kind of on the line of how much providing the money kind of out of my own pocket, hoping that the stream will catch up and hopefully and get to a point where the prize pool is actually growing because of how well the stream's doing. So anyone that's interested in kind of contributing to that growth, you just do it through the stream here. And that's how we're gonna do this for now. Again, if anyone wants to reach out to me with something specific, some kind of donation, or if they want to sponsor the next event, maybe them or a group of people or an organization wants to sponsor one or more events, I'm definitely open to that. If you join the Classic Dungeon Speed Discord and just message me directly, I check my Discord messages very regularly, and so I'm open to anyone reaching out to me on there about this. I think we are about ready for this next run, though, so I'm going to go ahead and get them set up.
So this team's coming from Rattlegore. This is actually our first team from Rattlegore. Again, a U.S. team, horde-based also, keeping up the trend of Zug in America. Again, we also got that druid, so the difference is they'll be swapping out their enhancement shaman for a mage for this run. So getting a little bit more AoE versatility within that, as well as we'll get AI and a couple other benefits as well. So,
all right, they're going to be coming through here, and looks like getting their last couple buffs up, getting some savory deviant delights just in case.
You gotta look good, or what else are you doing?
Oh yeah,
it is
you
World
gotta.
of Fashion Craft.
Gotta.
I just posted up the poll for what dungeon would you like to see next. Make sure you guys let your voice be heard. I'll post it a couple more times, especially as we finish up this run. But don't forget to vote. So this last couple teams have not had any of that cheeky arcane protection buff that the other teams had gotten, which I frankly wasn't even too aware of prior to this.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either.
There's not. I mean, I guess I don't even know what encounters would use that for. Scarum, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at this point, Scarum is one of those where people aren't even using arcane protections anymore.
Exactly. But there's some interesting buffs out there, as we've seen with some of the, I know Onslaught used the Razor Fen Downs buff for one of their runs they had there, and then there's also Salbagers is fairly notorious for utilizing that Diamond Blast buff you get for when you turn in the quest.
Oh yeah,
that gives you the extended buff. So there's some pretty unique buffs out there, and ones that I'm sure I've already forgotten about, that could be very advantageous in some of these. I know, you get the fire resist buff from the Spellbinders and Uber/Elbers, and that's something that we may see people employ if we were going to do a more fire damage based dungeon.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that those Barons buffs that Onslaught utilizes, they don't last very long, but these dungeons don't last very long. So if one of these horde groups had taken the time to get those all as their last buff and get the speed one, the razor hide, because you can stack I think all of those, and if they had just gotten them last thing and then gotten summoned here and logged out, they would have probably had all those buffs for the full duration almost of their dungeon run.
I mean, I think that buff is about 15 minutes, and it's a 25% boon to your armor plus a thorns buff. That's significant amount of mitigation, especially if you're in a caster heavy group too, where arguably you get a bigger benefit from some of that mitigation. But we're getting a nice rogue perspective. We haven't had that this run. Already seen them employing the distract. That's one thing I appreciate about a good rogue, is they know how to utilize those distracts to help with the pathing, get some clutch pulls or avoid a pull.
Yeah, I'm on it. Good. Yeah, he's good. Prot, take your second arcane.
So doing a little bit more of a traditional route, but they're trying to drag everything with them, which is, I think, very clutch. That's what's going to help keep them on the move and ensure that they're going right in. Man is not an issue for this team right now, and they're just transitioning into each pull immediately, very smooth, and grouping things nicely.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's super groups right now. Health is dropping a little low. It's a little scary, but they're okay.
Chad is bringing up an interesting point about they did have a Tauren. Their warrior, I believe, was a Tauren, so maybe they popped Deviates to give them a little bit more of an edge in terms of the hitbox, and not just the hitbox, but like pulling additional mobs.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, Tauren hitbox has been proven to actually make a difference for a lot of that kind of stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised.
It's definitely a double-edged sword. I mean, I've seen Taurens be able to hit like Fire Maw and Chromagus through walls too, while you're kind of line of sighting things. So it makes you a little bit more vulnerable, but gives you that extra little bit of edge. If you know PvP, mages hate it. Gives them the difference between that extra hit after a Frost Nova and not getting it off at all.
Yeah. It's I guess I think in most cases it's usually a downside. The Tauren hitbox, and it seems like these guys might think that rings true even here in dungeons.
Yeah, I mean it's the dad bod of the horde.
Our cows. We love our cows.
Yes, we do.
Again, taking a ton of damage here. I wonder. I mean, they've got 2 seconds left. I think that's another greater arcane protection they could be popping here. They might just wait and use it for the next pull.
Yeah, this warrior is also going for you. So we only had one warrior rocking arms today. The last group that won the Skullomance, I think everyone was arms, if I remember correctly. So,
yeah, I think
it's been an interesting departure.
Yeah, in that group that won the last competition, they did 4 warriors and a shaman. I think 3 of them were MS, sweeping strikes, and 1 of them was Still Fury. But yeah, it's interesting to see. Like we have 8 teams run today, and I think only 1 Moral Strike warrior. So
yeah, and this is I think our second warrior with a Thunder Fury. So and Thunder Fury can be interesting in this vortex because it does have the ability to chain into things that you don't intend to with that proc. So the proc is very good and definitely far better than it is worse. But I have seen it in Suppression Room. I've seen Hatchers get pulled that were very far away because of how it connected. So
yeah. We don't. I mean, I think most guilds at this point they don't have their main tanks use Thunder Fury on Twin Imps just because it'll jump and pull extra bugs.
Exactly. And in this room where you've got these guys spawning, there is that potential for that to happen.
These guys are moving pretty quick. They are at about 5 minutes and 40 seconds. So I think, I mean, without calling anything too soon here, I think that the better rewind is going to take this one.
It does.
But it does still, the second place is still definitely up for grabs.
We haven't seen too many movement, either potions or boots or anything like that quite yet from them. I don't think we haven't really seen the character sheet of this rope, but we are seeing sappers going out now. So we are seeing some of those engineering trinkets getting employed. Will be early utility, but maybe they'll pop it in some of the other runs. We'll see, or later in the run.
Yeah, this is the second to last pylon. Everyone is sort of elected to do these last 2 pylons in the same order here, which makes sense because the door to the final boss is over on that right side. But yeah, the big variation was just the 2 teams that pulled those top pylons down so that they could get killed right in this area, either between these 2 pylons, these 2 last ones, or after they had killed all of it. And I think that's just the big difference in the time it takes to run all the way up top and clear those 2 versus pulling them. Having someone go up and pull them down while the rest of your team comes over here and finishes off these the last 2 pylons closest to Immol'thar.
And they're doing a good job of getting the door open before they even engage Immol'thar.
Oh,
The
yeah.
rogue has done a nice job, and maybe I didn't quite notice it as much as the other runs because it wasn't from that perspective. But I didn't see as many distracts going out on the other runs. We've had rogues for the majority of the runs. Oh, but they got the vanish off.
You
That
got the
was,
vanish
that was-
off, but they have lost a mage, and the warrior is very low. The druid's very low. The warlock's very low.
Crazy.
Oh man, they're just. It looks like everyone's sort of going down.
Yeah. There's that soul stone, but it looks like it's gonna be a wipe here.
Yeah, and this, I mean, this is where, I mean, they have a druid.
They toughed it out, so they got the soul stones out. It looks like, but they're gonna be 3-manning the rest of this dungeon now. So they did not wipe, but 3-manning the rest of this.
Yeah, this is, I mean, this is pretty unfortunate. It's pretty rough. So I think they were able to, so the battle res, I think, came into play right there. I think the warlock's probably running back. I mean, at this point, I don't even know what you do.
Rush yourself off and finish off your run. That's all you can do.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, do you use the battle res on the warlock and then try to summon the mage once it gets back, or do you just say like, nah, we'll just go for the highest DPS because the time it takes to run back is just too much anyway? I think that warrior's stuck in his healing set now, with the amount of like random things that can put you in combat here.
The rogue's got full buff still, so he's just going to end up tanking the rest of this dungeon.
Yeah. They're going to move through here. Yeah, they're going to end up formatting this. I mean, they could still potentially get better than get not last place, I guess. But yeah, they're just not going to be able to move fast enough.
The wrong direction.
Yeah.
I think they got a little turned around there, so they ended up going a little further than they needed to.
Yeah, they're still popping. I mean, they're popping swiftness pots. At least this rogue is. They're trying.
Like I said, that's all you can do is just try to finish strong. Like I said, they're already they're still gonna be beating our time.
Yeah, they're still beating our time. And man, I'm kind of surprised this is the only wipe we saw. I mean, we saw a lot of groups dip pretty low, and I think that it's I think it's a lot easier to wipe while you're doing this particular dungeon as fast as you can, just because there's a lot of damage that goes out. Like all those arcane void walkers do a ton of damage. All the trash in general does. So I'm really surprised that that was kind of the first. It wasn't even a full wipe even, but that was the first like real chunk of deaths that we saw there.
Yeah, that vortex room gets really dicey very quickly. And the rogue was picking the door, so we didn't get a chance to see how that pull went off. It looked like they had some mana burns go off there, which is what could have put them in a little bit of trouble. The warrior was getting spiked pretty low on a few times, but they did manage to recover that, and I had called it as a wipe, but they ended up coming out strong with at least 4 people and cleaning up the run. So great job, guys. Really way to finish it out strong.
Yeah, and that's I mean, that's our last run. That's going to do it for us. We can now at this time say that the better Rewind took first and Empire took second. So our 2 EU teams coming in first and second. Maybe that'll stir up some more NA players in the future, just to like try to redeem the NA from this crushing defeat that we have felt today. But honestly, thank all the runners for coming and participating today, putting in that extra time and effort to get buffed, using consumables, probably putting in time and effort to practice too. I know for a fact that a lot of the teams put in a number of runs in DM West just to practice for it. So this wouldn't happen without you guys that showed up here and actually did the runs, actually performed the runs for us. So I appreciate all of you again for just doing what you've done. And yeah, I hope to see you guys in future competitions. I hope to see more people sign up and get involved in future competitions in general. They're open to anyone who plays Classic WoW. And I, again, will probably be posting more information and the registration later on down the line this month. I'm thinking around a week from today. The next competition will be in December. I haven't picked the exact day yet, but it will probably be on a Saturday or Sunday in December. If I had to ballpark it, I'd say the 12th or the 19th. Someone's asking, any chance of a no world buff run? That is one of the things that I am considering for a lot of these runs, especially for the competitions. Is that because I think that's a barrier to entry that if we said no world buffs, I think a lot more people would feel like they could jump in and try it out. And I would personally like to sort of lower those barriers to entry so that more people come in and they try it out and they get excited about it. So.
And to that effect, just remember I posted a poll. I keep posting it again, but for the next get your voice heard for the next competition or the one even thereafter, and the one even thereafter that. So make sure you get your vote in, guys.
Yeah, and I'm reaching out to the Better Rewind right now to see if we can't get them to come in to voice and maybe just like chat with them a little bit about how the run went, their preparation. I mean, they came in with an out of the box strategy, so it's very cool. And it looks like they are all there ready. So unless you've got anything else, Shrek, I'm gonna pull them down and we can chat with them.
Oh, that sounds great. We'll talk through the results of the poll after. Again, just get your votes in, and looking forward to hearing from the winners.
All right, let me snag them all. Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good, I'd say. After our run, it went very well, so we were all pretty excited that we didn't wipe horribly. So that was nice.
We're very, very happy about the run.
Oh man, you guys, I mean, I think you guys were the first ones to even implement a different strategy, and the whole time we're just watching the mage's health and mana, just wondering like, okay, what is he doing? Is he trying to kill it? Is he like kiting it down? And not knowing until the very end. Like that was a ton of fun and a ton of suspense.
Did you guys know that? Had you guys had that thought when you went into practicing that this week that you were going to do a pull like that, or did you guys kind of figure that out in your runs?
Well, the pull kind of evolved, right? So like when we came in, especially as Alliance, into like the first practices, kind of scouting out the dungeon, thinking about a route. Because of the pylons, we knew that on paper, Dire Maul West is pretty linear, right? You kind of have to kill all of the pylons. But we knew that as Alliance, we have a hard time winning against horde teams. Just the Wind Fury, the big male orc, Dark Edge of Insanity, it just hits harder than we can. So when we started to get creative, the idea of doing the pylons more efficient started as a hunter, simply pulling the upstairs pylon, the one that's further away, over the bridge. That's where the strategy started. As we kind of kept doing that, it just kind of evolved further into, hey, is there any way we can skip the entire upstairs part? And then with a bit of trying around, first it was the rogue that did the pull, later we swapped to the mage. It just kind of naturally evolved into, or as we practiced the dungeon more and more and thought about optimizations.
That's awesome. That's quite it's interesting how many classes you guys went through to kind of figure out what niche was going to be fit. And it seemed like, did you guys specifically end up going for the mage because of how it allowed you to group the ads? Or
yes, it was the grouping. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Originally was the rogue.
We started with a hunter, and then we did a rogue, and then finally we figured out that the mage is the best.
We did with the rogue up until like when he puts it into the doorway, but they weren't stacked at all, and the mage couldn't really get aggro to ice block.
Yeah. So yeah, we basically just ended up like, I'm pretty sure still the rogue is technically faster. Just sprint gives him more mobility, and the mage is constantly ice blocking to stack him up. So technically, the rogue just sprinting into it is easier, but executing the pull from a point where there's just a bunch of mobs constantly coming in was too hard for us. So we just opted with the mage, who can stack them up properly, and then ice block later to get them all into one place.
Yeah, so I'm watching. I have the mage POV video running right now on stream, and it's you guys are about to pull, and I'm excited to see like what's gonna happen here. I guess before we get there, how much? Because you said I think that the mage ice blocks multiple times, and I'm just like, how much? I guess like how much trial and error, like how many like different methods were there for the mage to get this pull kind of set up before you guys were like, this is it, this is perfect?
I'd say overall, we like on PTI, just overall, especially once the strategy was set in stone and it was just about like executing the pulls, I think we probably did 30-40 runs on PTR, just over and over again, trying to get the repetitions in, trying to hash out the small things, like, okay, can the mage maybe pull him a bit closer? Can we do this? Can we do that? So it was quite a bit of trial and error just to get this entire process
definitely a
down.
failure scenario.
Yes,
Yeah, but
also
there was a way where the
you never died, right? Did you ever die during the pull?
I don't think so.
I think he ever died now.
So what kind of spec did you in? Because I see you've got Blast Wave, and you obviously had Ice Block. So you kind of had to have gone for a bit of a hybrid spec there, it sounds like.
Yeah, a bit all of arcane, so mana-wise it's a bit harder. But yeah, I use Blast Wave for the AoE, and only I go first only until Ice Block, so I don't have an Ice Barrier.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And Blast Wave was definitely needed because
yeah,
if you look at the damage meter during that AoE pull, he does like over 50% of the total damage. It's really crazy.
Yeah, that's a very high risk, high reward pull where if you don't get them killed pretty quickly, you're going to be screwed over.
Yeah, I mean, we had 10 seconds, right? It was basic, like we mathed it out a bit, like did some napkin math, and it was, okay, Kiori can do the Cone of Cold, Code Snap, Cone of Cold Blast Wave, and everyone else Zappers, and then on paper that's pretty much exactly enough. So there was very little room for error. We had plenty of practice runs where someone ended up having their Zapper on cooldown when it got to that pull, and it was just an immediate wipe, because after those 10 seconds when we aren't invulnerable anymore, it's just 50 mobs at 20% HP beating us, and there's no way we survive.
Did you guys, because I saw, I think a few, like even Shrek mentioned it at the beginning of the run, were you guys mind visioning? And were you guys using that to pull some of those mobs out of Invis? Is that what was happening?
No, it was just because sometimes the first patrol mob didn't render. Like, we just didn't saw him.
Okay.
So we just had to make sure that he actually starts walking.
Yeah, basically,
and as soon as he went past, we started the run.
To get proper patrol pathing.
Yeah, like mobs out of the view of the players patrol differently, so we knew that with the mind vision we can load in the mob and start this patrol pathing in a way that it works out that we can kill the trees uninterrupted and kite them back as we move towards the pylon, and also run from the pylon downstairs towards the gate without any read interruptions.
Gotcha.
And about the seeing the mobs in invisibility, we actually had a warlock pre-buff us to be able to see them, because that's pretty much the only way you were able to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I noticed a few groups employed that, but it took me a second to catch it before I noticed that was being utilized for the detective visibility.
Yeah, you basically
very handy.
Yeah, we
now
had
on your
support team there today earlier. I think I saw it at the start of my VOD. Just the paladins ready to buff, the warlocks ready to detect Invis. Like shout out to the guilds for helping.
For sure.
With the entire endeavor.
Always shout out to the guildies who come out and help with the summons and all that stuff. It takes a village, as it were.
Oh, the escape artist was so scary.
So in your practice runs, did you guys plan on pulling the air elementals, or did you have any runs where you didn't pull any of them?
That was, I mean, so we want to pull. There's one elemental that patrols between the doorway towards Prince and the dog, and usually after the the 4 of us that cleared the pylons in the dog room, cleared them out. We had enough time to kill this elemental, like you can see it on stream right now, the one that the rogue distracted. We usually want to pull that just so that we have a clean path after the dog to the prince. But because we pulled the elemental accidentally earlier, we didn't have the time. But basically, we have time to kill one because we need to wait for the rogue anyways.
Gotcha.
Not the rogue, the mage, sorry.
Yeah, the mage. Man, it's just crazy. Are you guys? Was there? So you guys didn't know what the dungeon was before you signed up as a team. Was there any dungeon in particular you were hoping for or avoiding?
Yes, Lawbreaker Spire. Yes, Lawbreaker. We were scared of both Strathorn dungeons.
Okay.
Because Prot Paladin is very strong in both, but it's a very niche pull. So we didn't have a Paladin, so we were scared that if a team plays a Prot Paladin, they could pull ahead in either Strat Undead or Strat Living. We figured it wasn't going to be Scholomance again, but the same kind of applies to Prot Paladin in there. But we were hoping for LBRS, personally, as a dungeon of choice.
Interesting. Okay. Why LBRS? What about it?
We have some pretty...
There are strats you can do in LBRS. We'll just say
we
that
have
much.
some...
It's also a lot of things where you can jump down.
Yes, it's...
like that.
Yeah, like...
It's a pretty interesting dungeon.
Yeah. Like, first when we heard of Dire Maul West, we were a bit sad, almost, because on paper it is very linear. Luckily, we were able to do some more interesting things, but especially LBRS dungeon with so many different paths, so much verticality, you can do a lot of... different things, and we had some quite interesting strats already hashed out in our head when we thought about which dungeons it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some of the like restrictions that we're thinking about potentially moving forward, like some of it has to do with more group comp stuff. Some of it, like in the past, I've added in like certain boss requirements. With that kind of in mind, like knowing that it could be an LBRS with more bosses, or it could be any dungeon with like added restrictions, are you guys still hoping for like an LBRS in the future?
I mean, like, here's the thing. We haven't practiced LBRS much, but just in my head, I'm pretty confident that if it's literally just a final boss, we can do it in like less than 4 minutes. Obviously,
You're spoiling stuff.
Obviously, once we introduce more bosses into it, the dungeon becomes more interesting because the paths between the different groups are going to split more and more. So, I don't know. It will definitely be cool in LBRS to have the more bosses because it's such a wide dungeon, so many optional bosses. I mean, technically speaking, you only have to kill one boss. So I think it would definitely add a lot of variety, and it would make the dungeon more interesting still, even with multiple bosses, than most Strathorn dungeons would be, for example.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Do you guys know each other from prior private servers? Have you played together since vanilla? Are you guys retail buds, or like kind of how do this group kind of form up?
We're all from the same guild on Ganas. We just kind of formed the guild as the server was created, and we just found each other. We never knew each other before. I think everyone just met in Rewind.
Yeah. Very cool.
Start from the same guild.
4 out of 5 are since week 3 or something together. So.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I was gonna ask. Now that you've done one of these, are you gonna try to do more? Are you gonna maybe look at the leaderboard and do some leaderboard runs? Like, what are your thoughts on dungeon speedrunning in general?
I think we kind of all agree that it was a lot of fun, and it's like something like niche and different in the game, which at this point, for many people, the game has become kind of stale. So it's like a new thing to do, I guess, which is always nice. So thank you very much for putting this on, because we had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
this was great for all of us. We really enjoyed it, and I think in general it made like both any follow-up competitions. Obviously, you gotta defend the title now. But outside of that, like also the leaderboards are interesting. The class stacking makes it more difficult for our group of people because obviously in a situation like that you'd want a more warrior-heavy setup. But it's definitely something that we're still in the lookout for to optimize that. And especially further competitions are pretty enticing, I just say so. I'm sure the other four agree with me on that front.
Yeah. Are you guys have you guys looked at the leaderboards at all? Are you gonna maybe do some of those?
I mean, I know the people that had the Dire Maul West run before, so there was already some interchange. It was actually Gendesere who linked this entire thing to me and me then respectively to the rest of the group as a thing that we should do, because I think we decided to sign up on like 2 days before before the like sign-ups basically closed. So yeah, it's a cool thing.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for signing up, for coming. Like, your guys' run, I think, was an example of the kind of thing that I was really excited about, was just groups coming in and really throwing an off the wall strategy into play and having it like work out for them. So it was a ton of fun to watch you guys. I'm glad we got the mages perspective as well, because if anyone hasn't, I did show it on stream here as we were chatting, but and you guys linked it a couple times. Like, it's just super fun and interesting to look and see what people are capable of in these dungeons.
For sure.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tran, for putting these shows on, and thanks you guys for putting on such an electric run. You know, this is kind of stuff that we vie for. I think it's excited to see what other people bring to the table, because I know there's a lot of other people who can think of pretty innovative ways to accomplish these dungeons. And at this point, everybody's run Molten Core, BWL, AQ, and soon enough we'll have run Nax a billion times. But some of my favorite dungeons are some of the low-level dungeons and the 60-level dungeons too, and they really kind of get underexplored. So I'm excited to see how people get creative, innovative, and do things that we didn't think possible, like we saw today. You know, so thanks for putting on a little bit of a clinic for us.
Thanks for providing the platform for us to do that. We wouldn't have spent 40 runs in Dire Maul West if there was no reason to do so. So
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Indeed.
Awesome. Well, I'll be reaching out to you guys probably once we finish up here, just to make sure that I get you guys your prize for coming in first place. And yeah, do you guys have any closing thoughts or suggestions or anything?
No, I think the competition was great.
Well, I mean, let me just, obviously want to thank my team, our team, and Kiori for hard carrying the team, and also my guildies, everyone Ganas. We are recruiting, so if you guys are big pumpers and want to play on a not dead server, not a dead gamer server, then come to Ganas and apply to Rewind. We speedrun as well, so yeah.
Yeah. Go check it out. Any EU viewers right now who are big pumpers?
That's a hell of a recruitment video.
Yeah, it is.
We're definitely making it into one.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I hope to see you guys on the leaderboards or in future competitions, and just continuing to show us NA people like what can actually be done in these dungeons.
We'll most
Top 2
certainly
spots
follow
EU.
up to that. Yep, top 2 spots EU Alliance.
EU Alliance coming in strong. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
Yep.
Thanks so much.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You as well.
All right, Shrek. I think that about does it for us. Man, that was a ton of fun. Those are a lot of great runs. Again, for anyone who's maybe joining us a little bit late here, everything that we've been doing today is kind of been housed in this Discord that I'm linking in chat. It's the first one, the Classic Dungeon Speed Discord. We host these competitions, but we also have just regular leaderboards for people to just like play the game, run dungeons, record it, and vie for some like top spots and speed. Shrek is also linking that straw poll. If you've got a chance, just click on that. We're always interested in knowing what people want to run. So if you have a particular dungeon you want to run, or you want to see other people run, go ahead and check out that straw poll and vote on that. I think with that, we are just about done for today's competition. Again, thank you guys all for being here. this wouldn't be a thing if you guys weren't here watching and supporting it. So thank you all again for everyone today, for the follows, for the subs, for everything. I appreciate it. You guys are, again, like the reason why this is happening, the reason why I finished the first one and immediately wanted to do another one. And now I'm finishing this one and I want to do another one. And it's because of you guys. So thank you all so much. And yeah, Shrek, do you have any closing thoughts, closing words?
Yeah, shouts out to the community. Y'all real one. It what makes this happen ultimately. Thank you, Duranosaur, for the opportunity to co-broadcast with you. It was an absolute blast, a ton of fun. Shouts out to all the competitors. Anybody who showed up today, you put yourself out there, you tried. Even if it didn't go exactly how it planned, you still finished that run, and you're all champion in my eyes. So I appreciate you. We do have the final results tabulated from our team straight from Anaheim, California. It looks like we got a three-way tie right now. It's a razor thin. Elections these year not as clear cut. So it's a three-way tie between Elbers, full Stratholme, and a BRD.
Wow.
We did have Ubers and full BlackRock Spire coming in close at 4 votes, but a piece. But it looks like we've got people want to see it all. I think that's what I'm taking away from this poll.
Yeah.
They want all of it.
Except Dire Maul. No one wants Dire Maul.
No more Dire Maul. Dire Maul's been canceled.
Okay. That's good to know. It's good to know. Like I said, we're working on the next one, and be looking for the registration information on the next competition. Again, I think I'll probably get all that put together and put out sometime around next weekend, or early the week after. And I'll be posting that on the Classic Dungeon Speed Discord. I'll probably also post on Reddit like I have been, just trying to get the word out, trying to get as many people as we can involved in the community, and thinking about running dungeons again. So thank you guys all again so much for being here. That's going to do it for us. I will be probably highlighting the whole event for today and uploading it on YouTube. So again, if you guys missed anything, or if you guys want to rewatch the runs, you can obviously watch the VODs on my Twitch today, but I'll also post the entire thing on YouTube. So it's just easy and fun to find for all of you. So with that, I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you again for the last time for being here. My name's Duranosaur. You can find me here on this channel. His name is Shrek. You can see his Twitch there on the right side, twitch.tv/DrPhilX. So if you want to support him, you can check him out there. If you want to support me, you can continue to support this channel. And yeah, hopefully you guys all have a good rest of your weekend, and happy hunting. See you guys.
Bon voyage.